Chapter 572. What the F***ck? Toby shivered and mumbled, "What is with this strange feeling of disgust?" Actually, that is quite reasonable, Fongbujua replied. Because silkworms are larvae. That's enough, now is not the time to teach science. Hong Hu interrupted them and raised his finger to point in the opposite direction from the boss. Let's run first. With that, he started to run. My stamina points are still okay, so I'll hold her back. Uncle Worthless faced the boss and stood at the back of the group. You guys go first, I'll catch up to you in a bit. From his tone, it sounded like he was not discussing this with his teammates but had already made up his mind. No wonder he's a friend of justice, he sounds so reliable. Unconstrained started to ramble, but before he finished, he was dragged away by Brother Jew. Toby followed, but before he left, he turned back to say, "No matter what you're planning to do, be careful." Humph. Looks like I've been underestimated. After his teammates ran into the crystal pillar forest, Uncle Worthless scoffed and reached into his pajamas to pull out a pack of cigarettes. Foo-foo. He lit a cigarette, took a deep puff, and exhaled. Then he turned to look at the giant silkworm lazily and mumbled, "Escaping from this kind of situation is still very easy for me. Looks like you guys don't understand." The giant silkworm's cute voice rang out again. Looking at the 4 players who had escaped, she scoffed condescendingly. "Ha, so be it." Before she finished, the giant silkworm's body shuddered. In the next second, the invisible net in the air was revealed. Instantly, the sky above the crystal maze seemed to be covered by a layer of white silk. Then, she slowly lowered her large silkworm head through the net and leaned toward Uncle Worthless. "Why aren't you running?" "Foo-foo. I'm buying time for my friends." Uncle Worthless stood proudly facing the giant creature's gaze. Under such circumstances, not only did he not take half a step back, he even calmly raised his head and blew a puff of smoke at the boss' face. "You want to eat us, don't you?" Uncle Worthless continued. "How can I let you have your way? In other words, you want to resist." The giant silkworm said, As expected, hee. She laughed again. "I've met prey similar to you before. After you escaped from the net, you thought you could run away? Ha ha." Uncle Worthless caught a hint of danger from the other party's words. His heart clenched as he asked, "What do you mean?" "Heh. Take a closer look at the top of your head," the giant silkworm replied in a low voice. Ignorant traveler from another world. When Uncle Worthless heard this, his expression changed slightly. He quickly looked up and saw Devil Chomp Island, east of the Defiant Island. Beyond the border of the crystal maze, a small wooden house could be seen after crossing a white salt beach. Creak, creak. With the sound of metal wheels turning, a mini tricycle arrived in front of the wooden house. Riding on the tricycle was a doll the size of a child. He wore a black suit with a bright red bow tie. On his white, masked face, there were 2 spiral-shaped red blushes, a pair of red eyes with a hint of black, and a mouth with red lips. "I really want to pretend that I'm not in the house." A man's voice came from inside the house. "Unfortunately, even though there's a door between us, you and I can feel each other's presence." "Ha ha. Long time no see, little brother," Billy said with a smile. "We haven't seen each other yet," the little brother in the house replied. "We're just talking through the door." He raised his voice. "If you turn around and leave now, I can pretend that you've never been here. It'll be better for everyone." "That's enough, Bill. I know you're upset, but aren't I here to save you?" Billy stepped down from his tricycle. With small steps, he climbed up the stairs in front of the wooden house with difficulty. There were only 3 steps in total, but for the small Billy it was quite tiring to climb up. "You have to understand me. It's hard for me to come and save you when I can't even protect myself." Yes. Then you might as well not come," Bill said. "I'm just an insignificant, violent person. Even if I go out, I'll only be a burden to you." "Shut up, Bill." Billy used a stern tone to cut him off. "Okay. Bill seemed to have vented most of his complaints, and his tone became meek. Let me take a look. Billy stood on his tiptoes and leaned against the door of the wooden house. Then, he stared at the wooden texture on the door. After staring for a full 10 minutes, Billy took 2 steps back and stood on the porch. He chanted loudly, "Ballabing, ballaboom, ballabing, bang boom." Then, something shocking happened. The wooden door made the same noise as Billy's incantation, if it could be counted as an incantation, and the door made a series of clanking noises. Then, with a creak, the door opened. Bang! Bang! In the dark house, heavy and powerful footsteps were soon heard. As the footsteps got closer, a tall and muscular silhouette appeared at the door. "Now," Bill's deep voice was just inches away from her. "We finally meet." Before he could finish his sentence, he heard another crack sound. A giant armored puppet that was 2.5 meters tall and weighed 1 ton smashed through the door frame and broke out of the cage. This was Bill. His entire body was made of an unknown dark blue metal. He had a square head that looked like a mahjong tile. His torso was in a V-shape. His arms were as thick as thighs, and his legs were also as thick as thighs. "You seem to have become smaller than I remembered, brother." Bill looked down at Billy. "That's because you've grown taller." Billy shrugged, turned around, and carefully jumped down the stairs. "At least when you were locked up in this house, you could enter and exit that door normally." "I see." Bill scratched his head. "Whatever." His face was very unique. Compared to Billy, Bill's expression was much richer because Bill's face was a monitor. Even though his face was a flat surface, the monitor could display all kinds of emoticons. "While you were locked up, many things have changed." Billy walked to the tricycle and turned around. "I'll tell you everything on the way." "Okay," Bill said. "Then, where are we going now?" "The Crystal Maze," Billy replied. "Huh." Bill was taken aback. "Aren't we leaving Devil's Munch Island directly?" "No, I need you to help me move something." Billy got on the tricycle and started to move. Bill followed behind with big strides. His walking speed was similar to Billy's. Hey, what are you doing? You saved me so that I can be your mover? Do you think I'm just here to chat with you?" Billy asked calmly. "Humph." Bill huffed with annoyance. "After leaving this broken island, I'll part ways with you." "Then you'll be captured soon," Billy said. Billy continued, "Then they'll design a bigger cage for you, and a more painful way of torture." "Oh? Is that so?" Bill replied. "Then what will you give me? A heavy job that requires me to work 60 hours a week? The reward will be, let me think, a can of engine oil?" "Actually, I did find a job for you," Billy replied. "You'll be a librarian at the Count of Scrip's place." "What?" Bill was shocked. "Are you crazy?" "That old man is crazy. He'll spread me on his sandwich like jam and eat me." "No, he won't. I've already reached a consensus with him," Billy said. "Currently, we have a very stable working relationship, and I believe he's a man of his word, much more reliable than you." "Oh, so, you've already arranged everything before you came here." Bill's face changed into a pout. "And I can only accept everything?" "Yes," Billy replied. He paused and tried to use his scary voice to express a kind of gentleness. "I'm sorry, Bill, but I can't have you by my side, at least not now. After I explain it to you, you'll understand. Our universe is facing the crisis of total disintegration. I still have many things to do, very important things." "That's fine. I might not understand even if you explain it to me." Bill was straightforward. Since his brother was in trouble, he did not ask. "Let's talk about the matter at hand. What do you want me to move?" Billy sighed and replied, "The body of the Silkworm Mother." "What?" Bill jumped. "The Silkworm Mother is dead? Who did that?" "She's not dead yet." Billy lowered his head and looked at the small watch on his wrist. Billy didn't have this accessory before he went to the brothel. "But it'll be soon." At the same time, inside the crystal maze, Hey, we've run far enough, right? Atobi ran behind Hong Hu's team for 5 minutes, and he was gasping for air again. Ha! I think it's about time. Even Flying Horse was gasping for air. He had indeed left 2 little stamina points for himself. Phew, then let's take a rest. Hong Hu saw that his teammates were almost at their limit, so he stopped. He adjusted his breathing and said, Phew. In any case, it doesn't look like the enemy is catching up to us. Seeing Hong Hu stop, Atobi screamed and collapsed to the ground. He gasped greedily for air. Ha! I say, the net in the sky. Ha! Why did it suddenly show up? It's probably the boss activating some kind of skill, Feng Bujue replied. His breathing was relatively even. Uncle Loser will be fine, right? Flying Horse asked. From the team tab. When Feng Bujue replied, he opened the game menu. He's still alive. It'll be fine. Brother Chai is very reliable, Hong Hu said. With his ability, it shouldn't be difficult for him to escape unscathed. Hong Hu was only halfway through his sentence when he was suddenly cut off. His whole body froze like he was frozen in time. A sound like ka-gu escaped his throat, and his expression was one of extreme fear. What's wrong with you? Feng Bujue stared at the man in alarm and used the corner of his eyes to scan the surroundings. At that moment, Brother Ju's first reaction was that Hong Hu had been immobilized by some kind of attack. But almost at the same second, Atobi, who was sitting on the ground, and Flying Horse, who had his hands on his knees, had the same reaction. What is going on now? Feng Bujue asked darkly. Even though he wanted to do something, before he understood the situation, it was not wise for him to act rashly. After a short period of silence, a strange scene appeared. Hong Hu, Atobi, and Flying Horse all straightened their bodies, and their limbs started to move stiffly like machines. They were like 3 funny toy soldiers. Their limbs were taut, and they moved at the same time as they moved forward. Are they being controlled by something? Looking at his teammates' actions, Feng Bujue soon came to a conclusion. Then, the problem lies in the theory of control. While he was thinking, the 3 of them had already turned around and strode towards the place he had escaped from with great difficulty. Is it mental manipulation or physical interference? Feng Bujue could only try to come up with a solution as he followed behind them. From their unnatural movements, the chance of it being physical interference is higher. He scratched his chin. But if it's physical interference, how come I'm fine? He looked up, down, left, right, front, back, and so on. I was with them earlier, and there was no sign of an enemy attack at all. There's no reason for me to be the only one who survived. Ka-ji. At that moment, Ambitionist struggled to release 2 strange groans from his throat like he was trying to remind Brother Ju of something. Save it, I don't understand you, Feng Bujue replied ungratefully. Goji. Gu. Atobi and Brother Ma also mumbled something in unintelligible language. The same goes for the 2 of you, Feng Bujue added. Save your energy. This kind of zombie language will only distract me. However, the 3 of them still didn't stop talking. They tried their best to say something. That's right. Suddenly, Brother Ju was struck by inspiration. You're not trying to tell me something specific, because you know you won't be able to. You're trying to remind me. After understanding that, Brother Ju's mind cleared up. He looked at Hong Hu's back and said, So, the problem lies with the statement, I'm the only one who survived? Ambitionist immediately responded with a few clicks of its tongue. Okay. I'll think about it, Feng Bujue replied. Then he thought to himself, I'm the only one who survived. I'm the only one. Just 3 seconds later, he came to a conclusion. So, that's how it is. Brother Ju instantly stopped his guard around them. He walked forward and mumbled, No one attacked us earlier. He paused. When you were stuck on the net, the attack was already over. At this point, Feng Bujue walked to Atobi's side. Where is it? He narrowed his eyes and looked at Toby up and down, searching for something. Found it! About half a minute later, Brother Jew's eyes glowed. He saw there was an extremely thin and almost imperceptible strand of pinkish-white silk hanging from the back of Toby's head. One end of the silk was hidden inside Toby's hair and extended all the way to his brain, while the other end extended all the way to the sky. We really can't let our guard down. As Fong Bujue spoke, he took out the blade of absolute defense penetration. This strand must be different from the others on the net, so it hasn't fallen off and has been perfectly hidden here. Ding! When Brother Jew's cleaver landed on the strand of silk, there was the sound of a rubber band snapping. The next second, Toby fell forward and knelt on the ground. He gasped for air like he had lost all his energy, and his face was covered in white sweat. That was so scary. Toby gasped for air. That was too scary. Fong Bujue ignored him and continued to move forward. Following the same pattern, he soon found and cut the strands of silk behind the other two's heads. This time, he could be considered to have completely rescued his teammates from the net. If you had made your move 10 seconds later, my stamina points would have been reduced to 0. Flying Pegasus sat on the ground after he was rescued and said with lingering fear in his heart. Ambitionist sighed. Sigh. Even if we clear the scenario this time, our terror points will be the worst of the bunch. What's wrong? Fong Bujue asked. When you were controlled, did you see something scary? It's a long story, Hong Hu answered. His answer was fitting. In less than 2 minutes, Hong Hu's team had experienced a very scary experience. At the time, their bodies were not under their control, and they could not make a sound. However, their 5 senses were still there, and they were much sharper than usual. They could hear the smallest sound inside their bodies, like the beating of their heart, the movement of their intestines, the flow of their blood, and the contraction of their lungs. They saw all the details in the scenery, like the cracks on the crystal, the fungus on the surface, and the fibers on the net. They also smelled scents that they would never forget, like the smell of their nostrils. Okay then, in any case, the 3 of you should rest here for a while. I'll be leaving, Fong Bujue said and turned to leave. Huh? Where are you going? Flying Pegasus asked. Do you even need to ask? Fong Bujue replied seriously. Don't forget. He pointed at the back of his head. Uncle Worthless is in the same situation as you. Chapter 573. When Fong Bujue returned to the corridor, the Silkworm Queen had already disappeared, and Uncle Worthless was nowhere to be seen. Lifting his head to look, the net that they had cut open earlier had been repaired. Upon closer inspection, he could see that the broken parts had been replaced by new, lighter-colored silk. What's going on? Fong Bujue asked darkly. Have they been captured? He glanced at the game menu. In the Team tab, Uncle Worthless' status was still alive. Or did he escape on his own? Brother Jew thought as he studied the details of his surroundings. His eyes first fell on the Blade Butterfly Queen's body, and he mumbled, "It hasn't moved at all." Then, he raised his head to scan the nearby crystal pillars. The damage on the pillars is the same as when we left. It doesn't look like there was an intense battle here. Fong Bujue scratched his chin. So, they were controlled. Suddenly, Brother Jew saw something else. He took several steps forward and squatted down. This cigarette. He picked up one of the cigarette butts on the ground and studied it closely. This is no doubt left behind by Uncle Worthless. Assuming, he lit up the cigarette once we left and then used words to communicate with the boss. Then, based on the degree of combustion, about 2 minutes later, the cigarette fell to the ground. But Fong Bujue put down the cigarette butt and stood up. The time when Hong Hu and the rest were controlled was about 5 minutes after they started running. Could it be? He raised his head to look at the net in the sky again. Could it be that the boss' ability to control others through the silk will cause a delay due to the distance? Hey, are you okay? Right then, Sky Steed's shout came. Fong Bujua turned to look and saw Brother Ma, Atobi, and Hong Hu running over. Aren't you guys going to rest for a while? Brother Ju asked calmly. How can a hero make someone in trouble wait? Unconstrained Sky Steed replied in a clear voice. He had to admit that this guy was really amazing. He had just faced the crisis of his stamina points reaching 0 a few minutes ago, and now he was full of energy again. Ha! Ha! Atobi was the same as always. Once he stopped, he would catch his breath. Compared to running a long distance, I'd rather fight. Has Uncle Worthless been taken away? Hong Hu was sweating profusely, but he could still maintain his composure. His thinking ability was not affected, so he asked a more constructive question. You've already observed the scene, right? Do you have any conclusions? Most likely, the boss took them away. Fong Bujua shrugged. Anyway, from the team column, death is a situation that can be ruled out. Then there's another 20% chance. Hong Hu adjusted his glasses and asked tentatively, Uncle Worthless used his own strength to escape from the boss control, but we don't know where he is now? Yes. Fong Bujua replied. If this was anyone else, this 20% chance wouldn't exist, but Uncle Worthless might have done it. That man with the sunglasses is unpredictable. Unconstrained Sky Steed nodded seriously. Phew. Then what should we do now? Atobi finally caught his breath and asked, Should we go and find him? Of course, Unconstrained Sky Steed replied. How can a hero of justice abandon his partner? First, I'm not a hero. Fong Bujua narrowed his eyes. Secondly, at least in the game, I belong to the evil faction. He licked his lips. But, considering the fact that the new main quest hasn't appeared, other than searching for Uncle Worthless, there doesn't seem to be anything else for us to do. Suddenly, Atobi was reminded of something and interrupted. Do you think Uncle Worthless has escaped back into the corridor? Once that was said, everyone turned to look at the exit of the corridor. You don't say. In a moment of desperation, that might be possible, Hong Hu said. If that's the case, he shouldn't have run that far. Fong Bujua said as he walked toward the corridor. Because the giant silkworm won't chase after him, Uncle Worthless only needs to stay close to the exit and wait for the boss to leave before he comes out. Warning, the area ahead is filled with energy from the defense circle. Brother Ju had just reached the exit of the corridor, but before he could take a step, the system announcement came. Okay. Looks like we can eliminate that hypothesis. Fong Bujua immediately turned around to explain the situation to his teammate. Everyone came over to give it a try, and they all heard the system announcement. This confirms our earlier speculation, Fong Bujua said. This is why the previous main quest didn't mention anything about being wiped out. If we still haven't exited the corridor when the time limit is up, the defense circle will activate, and then we'll all be wiped out. Oh well, Hong Hu added. At least we can confirm that Uncle Worthless is still inside this crystal maze, and we can confirm that there's no turning back. Main quest updated. Side quest triggered. Just as the four were discussing their next course of action, the system announcement came, and there were two of them at once. They all opened the game menu to look at the quest tab. The new main quest and side quest were, reach the Cage of Despair, and before Uncle Worthless dies, or leaves the scenario due to other reasons, reach the Silkworm Mother's nest and rescue him. Hey. This time, the main quest doesn't have any restrictions, Atobi said. Not only is there no mention of being wiped out, there isn't even a time limit. It does look a lot easier, Fong Bujua said with a bitter smile. But now that I think about it, this is such a scam. That's right, the time limit is not only a restriction but also a hint. Hong Hu added. From the time limit given by the system, we can deduce the approximate distance between the mission target and ourselves and the average time needed to complete the mission. He paused for a second and swallowed. But this main quest doesn't have any hint at all. It only has one simple sentence, and this is much harder than the previous ones. Let's not focus on the main quest for now, Flying Horse chimed in. The most important thing now is to rescue our friends from justice. You're right, let's focus on the side quest first. Feng Bujue said weakly. Now that the system has told us about Uncle Worthless' situation, from the content of the quest, I'm afraid he won't be able to hold on for much longer. Chapter 574. In the southeast of the Crystal Maze, there was a place called Phylloxera. The so-called Phylloxera was both a place name and an item. The owner of this place, or rather this leaf, was the ruler of the Maze Realm's sky, the Silkworm Mother. Just as Feng Bujue and the rest received the mission, accompanied by strange hissing sounds, a huge white shadow wriggled towards this place. She was very fast, and her huge body was much more agile than it looked. Soon, she climbed onto the giant mulberry leaf that was about the size of a football field and perched on the leaf veins. Ugh, ugh, Silkworm Mother let out a series of horrifying vomiting sounds with her lowly's cute voice. In the next second, a stream of mucus gushed out of its mouth. Then, a pinkish-white human-shaped cocoon fell out and landed on the leaf. You haven't gone mad yet? The Silkworm Mother chuckled coldly. This is the first time I've seen a human that can last so long. As she spoke, the human cocoon was pulled up by the silk thread and slowly rose into the air. The Phylloxera's height was parallel to the silk net in the air, and the Silkworm Mother was always moving in the world above the silk net. Normally, after being controlled by me, people would immediately fall into extreme panic. Even if they were left alone, they would go mad within 10 minutes, the Silkworm Mother continued. Silkworm Mother continued, and you. I swallowed you into my stomach and brought you all the way here, but you still showed no signs of mental breakdown. Around the Phylloxera, there were 4 or 5 extremely tall crystal pillars that gradually converged upward. While the Silkworm Mother was talking, the cocoon that contained Uncle Worthless had risen to the edge of one of the crystal pillars and was suspended there. But don't worry, I can wait. The Silkworm Mother cackled. You should be able to hear me now, right? That's right. In the cocoons around you, there are a few stubborn fellows like you. They are all still alive. She was referring to the other cocoons that were suspended on the other crystal pillars. However, those chrysalises were much bigger than the one Uncle Worthless was in. From the looks of it, the creatures inside the chrysalises were clearly not humanoid. They've stayed there longer than you can imagine. The Mother Silkworm continued. Don't expect to starve to death. You won't. My cocoon will keep you alive until you turn into a delicious meal that has gone insane. She laughed proudly before her tone suddenly turned cold. I know you still have hope, she snorted coldly. Yes, your companions did successfully cut off the brain threads I implanted, but don't think that they will save you. As she spoke, her body trembled again. At this moment, the net above the crystal maze returned to its invisible state. I won't let them have their way, Silkworm Mother said gloomily. Her voice was a stark contrast to her tone. I'll wait here for them to walk right into my trap, somewhere else in the crystal maze. The net disappeared again, Atobi said as he looked at the change above him. It didn't disappear, it just returned to its invisible state, Feng Bujue said. From how I see it, Hong Hu said with some thought. This is probably a sign that the mother silkworm is returning to her nest. I say. Running Horse turned to Feng Bujue. Are you sure we're heading in the right direction? Yes, I also want to ask, why are you leading the way so confidently? Atobi asked. I can't say that I'm confident. This time, I'm only 60 to 70% confident, Feng Bujue explained. You saw the patch of net that was repaired earlier, right? Based on the color of the silk, I managed to predict the order and direction that the mother silkworm was weaving the net in, and from that, I was able to deduce which way she was retreating. He gestured with his hand. Furthermore, the direction that we're heading in is similar to the path that she took earlier. Awo. Before Brother Jew finished, a standard wolf's howl came from the front of the group. The 4 players immediately stopped in their tracks and became alert. They were like birds that were startled by the twang of a bow, so even the slightest movement had to be treated with caution. At this point, the terror of nightmare mode was starting to show. Even though all 5 of them were powerful players, the progress of the scenario was not that much easier. This was because they did not have the chance to show off their strength. Since the start of the scenario, there had not been many serious battles, but everyone's stamina was almost depleted. With the triple debuffs of hunger, thirst, and fatigue, there was no need for any powerful monsters. Just some disgusting scenario settings were enough to make the players run for their lives, and they were in a sorry state. The low growl of a beast approached. Behind a translucent crystal pillar, the shadow of a beast appeared. Just as the players thought that it would be some kind of wolf-like creature, the system toyed with them again. Following another howl, the beast finally jumped out from behind the crystal pillar and showed its real body. It was a goat, and it was a wild goat. It looked like a highland breed. Its fur was grayish-brown, and its upper body was darker. There was a pair of slightly curved horns on its head, and there were many ridges on them like a mountain range. The goat widened its bulging eyes and lowered its head. It shook its horns threateningly and howled again. The gamers weren't afraid at all. Instead, they looked at the creature in front of them with a pained expression. "This is a goat, right?" Atobi's lips twitched as he mumbled. No matter how you look at it, it looks like a goat," Hong Hu added. Perhaps it evolved to mimic the cry of its natural predator. Feng Bujue held his chin and said. Just as the 3 of them were commenting on the head and hooves of the goat in front of them, the heavenly steed leaped forward. "Evil creature!" Flying Pegasus waved his arm and roared, "Are you trying to stop the hero's footsteps?" "Awo!" The goat howled again, as if it could really understand Brother Ma's words. "I advise you to turn back from the wrong path." Sky Steed and Soaring Skies turned sideways again, changing the angle and pointing at him with a completely symmetrical posture. "I still see a trace of kindness in your eyes. Even if the matter between your mother and the wolf caused you to be discriminated against in your childhood, you can't give up on yourself. You have to. Kindness my ass." Feng Bujue rushed forward from behind and slapped Brother Pegasus on the face, pushing him to the side. "What mother and wolf? What kind of child is that? What kind of country is that? Why are you shooting your mouth off at a goat? Do you think you're Naruto?" Before he could finish his rant, there was a shing sound, and Brother Pegasus' cleaver left his scabbard. "All of you back off. Let me, who has the power of 5 Tiger Star, deal with this." Feng Bujue grabbed the cleaver and prepared to attack. In his eyes, be it a wolf or a goat, there was no difference. He had eaten a fairy, so how could an animal survive in his hands? What is he talking about? Hong Hu asked with confusion. In terms of setting, the 5 Tiger Stars are the 5 strongest chefs in the world of dark cuisine, Abe added. The second he said that, he sighed and shook his head with his hands over his face. Sigh. Why would I know something like that? While they spoke, Brother Pegasus leaped at the goat. Then, amidst the rising and falling groans and roars of the man and beast, an extremely ugly wrestling match took place. To protect the integrity of the ingredients, Feng Bujue chose to use the cleaver to fight in close combat, and the result was that he was half dead from exhaustion. In the end, he had no choice but to activate Body Enhancement spell, modification, to complete the kill. When the goat was pinned to the ground and its neck was slit open, Feng Bujue did something that looked disgusting to others. He leaned forward and drank several mouthfuls of raw goat blood. After drinking the goat's blood, he wiped his mouth with his sleeve, stood up, and burped. Not bad. I really don't know how to comment on your behavior. Hong Hu licked his lips. I can only say that you are an extreme pragmatist. If you want a drink, then come and drink. After that, I'm going to cut it. As Feng Bujue spoke, he very mischievously used the blood to form a smile on both sides of his lips. Is this really drinkable? Flying Pegasus asked as he swallowed his saliva. Obviously, he was as thirsty as his teammates, but he still had some psychological issues. I think I've seen raw goat blood on the menu at a hot pot restaurant before, Abe said. But I didn't order it because I was afraid of parasites. Is that so? When Hong Hu heard that, he sighed in relief. He walked toward the goat's carcass. Then, there's nothing to worry about. Perhaps it'll taste good. He was a pragmatic person. If it was just a parasite, then it was fine. After all, there was no need to worry about illness in the game. Even if it triggered some kind of abnormal status, it could be cured with medicine. Hong Hu squatted down and lowered his head to take a few sips from the goat's neck. After 3 seconds, he stood up and said with a strange expression, "What the? Why is it so disgusting?" "I didn't say it was good." Feng Bujue shrugged. "Then, why did you say not bad with such a satisfied expression?" Hong Hu roared. "Because it can quench my thirst, and I didn't get any abnormal status after drinking it," Feng Bujue replied. "If it fulfills those 2 criteria, then it's a qualified drink. What else do you want?" If it's me," Abe added, "I want to put it in a bowl and add some parsley and peanuts. I want to boil it to kill bacteria and add some salt," Flying Pegasus added. "Stop wasting time." Feng Bujue sighed helplessly facing these two who treated their questions as questions. "If you want to drink it, then hurry up. After that, I still have to deal with the carcass. Do you still want to save Uncle Trash or not? Or do you plan to branch out?" Chapter 575. After his teammates finished drinking the raw goat blood, Feng Bujue picked up the cleaver and used his deft cutting skills to dismember the goat. He removed the innards and bones, leaving behind large pieces of steak and lamb leg. Then he divided the meat into about 10 portions and distributed them to the 3 teammates. He took 3 portions for himself and placed them inside his backpack. "Okay, let's get going." After Feng Bujue was done with that, he put away the cleaver and urged his teammates to depart. "I say, you've been traveling non-stop. Aren't you tired?" Even Heavenly Steed soaring across the skies was surprised. During the few minutes that Brother Ju was cutting up the meat, Brother Ma and the rest rested where they were, and they more or less recovered some stamina points. However, with such a short amount of time, the recovery was very limited. On the other hand, Brother Ju, from the moment he entered the corridor until now, he had not stopped moving. He led the way in the corridor, fought with the knife butterfly queen, saved people from the net, escaped, turned back, and led the way again. Now, he even wrestled with the giant goat and became a butcher. After doing so many things, he did not seem like he was going to take a break. Anyone would be surprised by that. "It's okay, I can still do it," Feng Bujue replied casually. He did not explain further. Like before, he did not want to reveal the power of the hate-gatherer in detail. His teammates did not know that, when he was wrestling with the goat, Brother Ju used the furnace of hatred to recover some stamina points. Of course, the damage caused by the body enhancement technique, modified, was not included in the calculation. That was not an effective, hostile damage. However, the loss of life points caused by the goat had been converted into stamina points. Therefore, Feng Bujue's stamina points had recovered to about 20%. As long as he gritted his teeth, he could even use the Southern Dipper Flying Dragon Fist. "You don't have to worry about this guy," Hong Hu, who was walking at the back, said. "Don't forget, when the combat ranking was still around, this guy's ranking was about the same as Shiva's. Even Lying Drunk, Uncle Worthless, and Enigmatic Laughter were all ranked behind him." He paused for a moment. Players at this level cannot be judged by common sense. Even if he says that he has a passive skill that can double his maximum stamina points, I wouldn't be surprised. I almost forgot about that, Atobi said. This man's power is real. Ah. Speaking of which, Unrestrained Pegasus said weakly, after the version update, I disappeared from the new overall player strength ranking. He paused for half a second and added, and the new list can show a total of 30 people. That's normal. Hong Hu narrowed his eyes. I thought it was a miracle that you were ranked 20th before the revision. Humph. Hong Hu, you're just jealous. Brother Ma turned his bushy face to face Hong Hu. I'm jealous of your 7th uncle? Hong Hu grumbled with annoyance. I'm just telling the truth, okay? For a player like you, if it's a one-on-one duel, it's easy for others to come up with a way to deal with you. Just find a middle-skilled marksmanship specialist and come up with a strategy to deal with you. I agree with that. Feng Bujue agreed. I can come up with 47 strategies to deal with Unrestrained Pegasus in a one-on-one duel. Don't you think that statement is not only disgusting but also self-deprecating? Atobi added. Brother Ju ignored him and continued. By the way, Brother Ma, there is something that has confused me. I wish to ask you. I have a question for you, but if it's not convenient for you, you don't have to answer. He turned around and used a curious gaze to look at Unrestrained Pegasus. After receiving the mystery gift from the winner of the tournament for the best, your ability should have greatly increased, right? This sentence caused the atmosphere between the crowd to become tense all of a sudden. Without a doubt, this was a question that crossed the line. Even though the tournament for the best was over, people's speculation about the mystery gift had not stopped. Including Hong Hu and Atobi, almost every player was curious about the content of the prize. But the problem was, no one knew the answer. The only ones who knew the truth were the upper management of the Dream Company, the upper management of Xing Chen Gaming Studio, and the person involved who was the beneficiary of the prize, Unrestrained Pegasus himself. No matter which party it was, they would not leak the secret. There was no need to mention the Dream Company. If anyone leaked the secret, they might be silenced. The upper management of Xing Chen Gaming Studio was also very tight-lipped. For them, the content of the mystery gift was an invisible bargaining chip, and it would only be valuable if it was not revealed. So, there seemed to be only one way left to find out about this matter, and that was to ask Brother Ma himself. But who was going to ask him? This kind of thing was considered a trade secret in the gaming circle. As long as the gaming studio did not agree, Unrestrained Pegasus had no right to reveal it. Asking him, wasn't that forcing him to do something he didn't want to? Let me think. After Unrestrained Pegasus heard Brother Ju's question, he thought about it for a full minute before replying, This question of yours sounds like a pointless question. Since I've been pushed out of the top 30 on the overall ranking, then my ability must not have increased. Is there a need to ask that? TSK. You've seen through me, haven't you? Feng Bujue added. And here I thought you'd go with the flow and reveal what the prize is. Oh. So, that's what you want to know. Brother Ma smiled. It's fine, I can tell you. What? Hong Hu and Atobi were shocked. That is actually not a secret, right? How do I put this? Brother Ma placed his hands behind his head and said as he walked, I think, even if I tell you, it won't be a big problem. Of course, the studio did ask me to keep it a secret. Then, it's better if you don't tell me, Feng Bujue said. I'm just asking. I don't want you to lose your job or get into a lawsuit because of this. Haha. You're overthinking it. Unrestrained Pegasus laughed. When I was young, I was part of the group that was not looked up to, so the contract I signed was that of a blue-collar player. In my contract, there was basically nothing about the prize of the competition. However, there was an additional clause. The player has complete freedom over the distribution of the prize. He shrugged. Actually, even in the contract prepared for superstar players, it rarely mentions the need to keep the prize a secret. That's true. Normally, when a gaming company organizes a competition, the prize will be the main focus. It's rare to see a company like Dream Company who hides the prize like that, Atobi added. In other words, Hong Hu added, this part of the content is not covered by the confidentiality agreement. Yes. Unrestrained Pegasus laughed. I suppose you can count it as a loophole in the contract. But that is not enough reason for you to be willing to reveal the content of the prize. Feng Bujue said thoughtfully. I have a general idea. He glanced at Brother Ma from the corner of his eyes. The real nature of that mystery prize is probably something that even if we announce it to the world, no one will believe us. Ha ha, you're amazing. Unrestrained Pegasus laughed. Let me tell you, the prize is a one Pegasus vestment. Huh. Hong Hu's glasses were about to fall out of their socket. Atobi was equally dumbfounded. You don't say, even I don't believe you. Ha ha. Feng Bujue laughed and mumbled under his breath, tailor-made for each individual. Humph. That does sound like that guy's style. Unrestrained Pegasus thought that his brother Jew was talking to him, so he asked, What did you say? Oh, I said. Brother Jew raised his voice to bluff. It does fit your style. Of course. Unrestrained Pegasus slapped the bridge of his nose and chuckled. When I heard this, I was overjoyed. I was so excited when I received the package that I had to use my bare hands to tear off the plastic and cardboard boxes. Don't you think the value of this prize is a bit low? It's just a figurine, right? Atobi said. Skill points aside, Lying Drunk and Yama in the second and third place both received legendary equipment. Even though they won't sell their bound items, based on the current market price, legendary equipment is worth at least several tens of thousands of RMB. How do you know it's not worth it? Feng Bujue revealed a light smile. If I were Unrestrained Pegasus, I would also wish for the vestment and not some legendary equipment. He sighed and looked up at the sky. You have to understand. Something that is worthless to one person may be a priceless treasure to another. Yes. After all, the treasures in the game are all virtual. One day, Thriller Paradise will close down like other games, and everything here will come to an end. Hong Hu added. But the souvenirs in real life will be preserved. Hey, why do you make it sound like I've been scammed? Unrestrained Pegasus cut in. In the letter that the Dream Company sent me with the prize, it said that the vestment is worth 10 boxes of 4 drachmas, a silver coin that was used in ancient Greece. Haha, what kind of currency is that? Hong Hu laughed. And it's measured in boxes. It's not much different from Vietnamese dong, right? Atobi added, the party that gave out the prize must have exaggerated the value. No, I think it's quite reliable. Unrestrained Pegasus argued. I tried it on. The vestment's workmanship is exquisite. Even though it's heavy, I could move about freely after putting it on. The carvings on the outside of the vestment are exquisite as well. There's not a scratch on the surface, and it's slightly reflective. He paused. And, when I put it on, I felt energy rushing out of my body. The more Feng Bujue listened, the more he felt that something was wrong. A very bad hypothesis appeared in his mind. Let me ask, when you tried on the vestment, did you try to attack the wall or use Pegasus Meteor Punch? No, Broma replied. We're not in a game. Who would do something like that in real life? Are you a primary school student? You're the least qualified person to say something like that. Feng Bujue pouted. The four chatted along the way, but they did not slow down. In fact, with Brother Jew's guidance, they moved even faster. Since they had just rehydrated, the feeling of thirst had disappeared, and the exhaustion of their stamina points had returned to normal. In this state, even if they were walking, their stamina points would slowly recover. Feng Bujue had naturally noticed this, and he soon came to a conclusion. In this scenario, as long as they were not hungry or thirsty, the exhaustion of stamina points would be normal. As for fatigue, it was a physical sensation that would only appear when one's stamina points were low, and it could be alleviated with some rest. Of course, there was another factor to consider, and that was temperature. On that point, there was no need to worry about it. The temperature in Crystal Maze was on the cold side, about 10 degrees Celsius. This temperature would not bring any negative effects, and it would be more comfortable than 30 degrees Celsius or 0 degrees Celsius. After walking for a while, everyone's stamina points had returned to 20%. By then, they were not far from Phylloxera. Hong Hu. Feng Bujue seemed to have noticed something. He suddenly stopped moving and looked ahead cautiously. That infrared light of yours, it can still be used, right? When Ambitionist heard this, he did not waste any more time. He immediately took out the goose egg-shaped metal lamp from his backpack and stepped forward. There's still about half of the electricity left. As he spoke, he turned on the infrared lamp. Instantly, a large circular area around them was lit up by the red light. All of the nets within this area were also revealed. The group raised their eyes to look, and about 5 meters ahead of them was a silk wall. Ha! You're right. Feng Bujue said. Just like the locusts from before, these silk threads can also be exposed by the infrared light. I say, how did you know there's a silk net in front of us? Hong Hu looked at his brother Bujue and asked with confusion, You've been walking fast along the way, but once we're here, you have me turn on the infrared light. If you look closely, you can find some patterns. Feng Bujue raised his finger to point upward. In the maze, 90% of the crystal pillars are more than 12 meters tall, but there are very few that are more than 15 meters tall. And the average height of the silk net laid by the silkworm mother is more than 10 meters. He pointed at a random pillar beside him. Let's use 10 meters as the boundary. Turn off the infrared light and look at the part where the silk is glued to the crystal. Hearing that, Hong Hu turned off the infrared light. He studied it for a while and then said, The surface of the crystal is a bit blurry? That's right. Feng Bujue added, The principle is like using transparent glue to paint a line on the surface of a light bulb. If these crystal pillars don't give off any light, you probably won't be able to tell, Atobi added. All right, turn on the light, Feng Bujue told Hong Hu. Then he turned to look at Atobi. Atobi used the fan to clear the way. In less than 10 seconds, the two were ready. One held the light while the other grabbed the large fan. They started to sweep away the obstacles before them. I hate being ordered around, Hong Hu grumbled with annoyance. Sigh. Without realizing it, it has become that man giving orders again. Atobi added, What are you talking about? Feng Bujue yelled behind them. You can't blame each other. Have you forgotten the words of Walker, who died before the battle started, before he died? He didn't say anything before he was chopped up by you. Atobi roared. If I had to add a line, it would be. Hong Hu mumbled, I really don't taste good yam meat. As he spoke, Atobi swept away a few pieces of the net. After the net fell to the ground, it lost its threat, and the path was open again. The four continued to move forward and walked into an area covered in a thick layer of pinkish-white material. The crystal pillars there were taller and denser than elsewhere. The path on the ground was narrower and there were more forks. It felt like they had walked into an insect's nest. We're almost there. Hong Hu looked around cautiously and said, I think we'd better come up with a plan. Even though our physical condition is better than when we first exited the corridor, it's still not enough to defeat that boss. That caterpillar is indeed powerful, unrestrained Pegasus added. It was hit by my meteor punch, but it came out unscathed. I say, Natural Science Emperor. Atobi waved his fan to open the path as he turned to his brother Ju. You should know what silkworms are afraid of, right? Cold air, sun, fire, water. Feng Bujue summed it up and then poured a bucket of cold water on his teammate. Actually, silkworms are quite fragile creatures, but unfortunately, even if the mother silkworm has such a weakness, we won't be able to find a way to break through it. This is because she is too big. Based on the ratio, unless one of us can use a skill like Daguren Hyarinmaru, she won't even feel anything. But before he finished, Atobi said, "You should have said so earlier. I know how to do that." Fong Bujue was startled again. This was the second time Atobi had said something so shocking. Hong Hu and unrestrained Pegasus were calm. Their attitude was still the same. "Atobi, you're amazing. No wonder you're Hyodiai's boss. You really have a skill of that level." Fong Bujue still had a hard time believing it, so he confirmed it again. "Don't worry, it's definitely a powerful skill." Atobi did not mind revealing the name of the skill because it was a one-time consumable skill. The legendary ice wheel tilting mirror. Just from the name, it sounds powerful. Chapter 576. Yes, it's super powerful. If I remember correctly, Mad River Ice died after he used this skill, Fong Bujue replied with narrowed eyes. "Stop wasting time." Atobi grumbled with annoyance. "This is a one-time consumable skill that can only be used by Fighting Skill B and Sorcery C. Normally, it should be at least a level A skill." Fine. After we encounter the Silkworm Queen, we will use this skill as the core of our attack, Fong Bujue said. "Okay, leave the distraction to us." Hong Hu nodded. "We will try our best to create space and time for you to attack. Actually, you don't need to do anything. With the Silkworm Queen's size, hitting her shouldn't be a problem, and there is no chance of a consumable skill failing," Atobi said. "As long as I can confirm that there is no net between me and her, I can." As he spoke, he swept away a net in front of him. To his surprise, a shadow jumped out from behind the net. "Be careful." The moment the heavenly steed warned, he had already raised his hand and struck out. This attack was not a meteor punch, but an ordinary fist attack. However, Brony still relied on his domineering strength to blast out an invisible force. The shadow that suddenly jumped out was stopped by the shockwave, and its movement slowed down. Making use of this gap, Atobi took half a step back and waved his fan, successfully forcing the shadow back. At that moment, the crowd finally saw what was coming at them. It was a mushroom, to be precise. It was a mushroom man. If the image that appeared in your mind then was the mushroom from the Mario game, then you would be sorely mistaken. The thing before the players looked more like the god of haiku. In comic Nikwa, Matsuo Basho, who ate the poisonous mushroom, saw a mysterious creature. It was about 1.6 meters tall, and it was basically humanoid. There was a large yellow mushroom hat growing on its head, and its body was light yellow in color and had 4 limbs. However, there were no details on its body, like the outline of its muscles, fingers, toes, skin, and hair. There was none. In fact, it didn't even have a neck. Its head, torso, and crotch were all connected together. In short, the appearance of this illusory beast gave people the feeling that it was an extremely simple graffiti character. The lines of its face were also very casual. With just a few strokes, it formed a wretched and dull face. The god of haiku. Fong Bujue's eyes widened as he looked at the mushroom man. F***ck. After the mushroom man opened its mouth, it let out such a cry. At the same time, it used its bucket-like body to make a gesture of preparing for a fight, while it continued to clamor. Scrape. Compared to this guy, the howling goat from before seems so ordinary. As Hong Hu spoke, he held the infrared light and retreated to the back of his teammate. Clearly, he did not intend to participate in the battle before him. Anyone in the party could solo a monster like this. Naturally, Hong Hu prioritized maintaining the infrared light to prevent anyone from accidentally running into the net. Ha! Fong Bujue soon walked to the front of the group uninvited. He laughed. "Perfect timing. I was just thinking of eating something vegetarian." Hey, are you going to eat whatever you see? Atobi felt disgusted looking at the mushroom man, so he tried to stop him. We already have a reserve of food, so what's the point of eating vegetarian food? At this point, he seemed to be reminded of something. His eyes shifted, and he turned to look at Brother Jew. There seems to be a problem with the way you eat. Actually, you're just eating because you want to eat, right? It has nothing to do with survival or clearing the scenario. Scrape. The mushroom man did not care about what they were saying. It roared twice before leaping forward and launching a side kick at Brother Jew's face. Humph! This kind of skill is useless against me. Feng Bujue crossed his arms before his body to face the attack head-on. With a thud, their arms and legs collided, and they both staggered back about 10 feet. F***ck. This time, it was Feng Bujue who cursed. He was not surprised by the power of the opponent's attack, but he was surprised that he had been poisoned. What the hell? I was kicked through my sleeve, but there's an additional poison effect? Feng Bujue mumbled to himself. Brother Jew's original plan was to let the opponent hit him a few times and use the effect of the furnace of hatred to gain more stamina points. But it had backfired on him. I really can't let my guard down, Feng Bujue grumbled. He prepared to use Rankyaku to finish off this guy. But just as he was about to launch the kick, he suddenly had an idea and changed his mind. In the next second, he made a feint and made use of his speed advantage to appear behind the monster. Then, he took out something from his pocket and threw it out. I'm sure everyone has guessed it. That's right, the thing he threw out was the old pokeball that had never been used before. The mushroom man did not expect Brother Jew's action. Plus, the space was narrow, so it could not leave the pokeball's effective range. So it was hit. When the pokeball approached its target, it opened automatically and shot out a ray of white light. After the mushroom man was hit, its entire body was first turned into light, then rapidly shrunk until it was sucked into the pokeball. Thud! 2 seconds later, the pokeball fell on the crystalline crust, and then it started to sway left and right. For some reason, in these few seconds, the 4 of them were all nervous. They stood still and did not move an inch. Once, twice, thrice, driven by an inexplicable instinct, everyone held their breaths and stared at the pokeball. When it stopped shaking after shaking 3 times, they all breathed a sigh of relief. Ding 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 dang dang dang. At this moment, the system also gave him a rather strange sound effect that made him feel like he had heard it before. Feng Bujue took a step forward, picked up the pokeball, and grinned. Ha! I've finally tamed the god of haiku. What is with this strange sense of dissonance? Imaginative Horse mumbled. It feels like we've transmigrated into some other game, Hong Hu said. Atobi's sarcasm was sharp. Will there be a quest that requires you to collect badges from the various dojos on Devil's Island? Stop joking around. Who has the antidote? Give me one. Feng Bujue quickly brought up the topic at hand. Even though the effect of the poison was weak, he could not just ignore it. In these few seconds, he had gained quite a lot of stamina points from the damage. 5 minutes later, on the leaf. They're really here? The silkworm mother, who was taking a nap on the leaf, suddenly arched her body and said, I think I've found a way to inspect the net. The silkworm mother did not have real sight. Her senses were different from the 5 senses of a human. Therefore, she did not know about infrared lights, but she could sense the player's approach through the slight vibrations of the net. Interesting. My preparation was not wasted. The silkworm mother smiled. Just as she was talking to herself, a circle of red light came from the crystal path and reached the edge of the leaf. Suddenly, there was a whirring sound and a gust of wind blew. A large fan cut open a piece of the net that was laid flat in the air, and 4 figures leaped out from the gap. In the blink of an eye, the 4 players had stepped onto the leaf and formed a formation, waiting for the enemy to strike. You're here to save your friend? the voice inside the silkworm mother's stomach said in a mocking tone. I'm so touched. Feng Bujue ignored the man's words and focused on observing the environment on the leaf. After confirming the location of the boss and the terrain, he shared a look with his teammates and said, All right, let's move according to the plan. Hong Hu, Atobi, and Unbound answered in unison and split up with Brother Ju. Ha! What are you guys doing? Do you want to fight me? The silkworm mother's condescension was obvious. And I thought you guys would be smarter. Before she finished, the silkworm mother's body was attacked by multiple light arrows and punches. Atobi's large fan also sent out wind to attack the silkworm mother's tail. But the silkworm mother was still unfazed. For example, you can split into two groups. One group will be responsible for holding me back while the other group will save your friend and then split up to escape. How do you know that's not our plan? Feng Bujue's voice suddenly came from the air. In those few seconds, Brother Ju used Jeppo and approached the top of the few large crystal pillars. Humph! Not bad. The silkworm mother scoffed, and then her silkworm body shuddered. All of a sudden, all of the silk threads appeared once again, forming a pinkish-white sea on the bright green leaves. At the same time, the few large chrysalis hanging in the air suddenly moved. Other than the human-shaped chrysalis that trapped Uncle Worthless, the other 6 chrysalis exploded from within. 6 large creatures with strange faces jumped down from the sky to block Feng Bujue's path. Looks like you've been prepared for this. Brother Ju looked at the large creatures that were closing in on them. But so have I. A crazed, murderous intent flashed across his calm eyes. The explosion of light brought out a purple-gold war shadow. Feng Bujue faced upward and activated Summon. Ma Sun and a large general's soul appeared behind him. Ma Sun. Brother Ju yelled. Yes. Ma Sun answered. Feng Bujue took out the military shovel from his inventory and held it before his chest like a large blade. He waved it at the air above him. Zhonghua/dance. Ma Sun understood what he meant. Spiritual light gathered in his hand, and a real Guan Dao materialized. Instantly, golden light shone, and the shadow of the blade filled the air. The 6 shadows that descended from the sky were caught off guard. They were slashed all over the place, and some were even torn into pieces. Oh, you have such power, the silkworm mother said, but the latter half of her sentence turned into a crazed roar. Very good. You can't wait to taste your panic after going insane. Before she finished, the silkworm mother hissed again. Ja! This was the first time she had used a direct and real attack on the players. The chirps from the last meeting were merely a greeting, but this was the real deal. What the F***ck? Atobi was shocked when he was hit, and he cursed under his breath. He was quite far away from the silkworm mother, but he still staggered and almost fell. On the other hand, Xiaoma was not so lucky. He was closest to the boss, so he was hit the hardest. When the whistle started, he instinctively took several steps back and collapsed to the ground. A cold feeling quickly filled his nose and lip. He reached out to touch it, and blood flowed out of his nose like a broken dam. TSK. Did it affect his brain? Hong Hu, who was not far away, also squatted down. Even though he could still stand, for safety's sake, he squatted down. He was mainly worried that, if he stumbled and fell off the leaf and into the net, it would be even more troublesome. Plan B. Suddenly, Brother Ju, who was in midair, yelled as he flipped his body to land. Oh? There are 2 plans? The silkworm mother smirked. Let me guess. Plan B is to give up on splitting up to save people and focus on attacking me? Such an infuriating, highly intelligent bug. Feng Bujue took out 2 more grenades from his pocket and tossed them down with his teeth. Wait for me to deal with you. Dry pan, deep fry, stir fry. Do as you see fit. 1 second later, with 2 loud bangs, the 2 grenades exploded on the silkworm mother's back. Brother Ju used Void Walk to stop in midair, and did not enter the explosion range. What is that? A toy made from gunpowder and metal? In the dissipating dust, the silkworm mother's large body was revealed. Haha, speaking of toys, haven't you forgotten something? In that moment, Feng Bujue's pupils narrowed as he realized a serious problem. Chi. There was a flash of light, and the blood mist dissipated. Brother Ju's back was attacked continuously. Even the Ma sun made from spiritual droplets was shattered by the attack. He turned back to look and saw, the monsters that were disfigured by the Zhonghua dance were still moving. Even though their bodies had been disintegrated, they were still attacking mechanically. Surprised, right? As long as there is a part of the nerves that hasn't been completely destroyed, even if there is only an arm or a finger left, I can still make it move. The silkworm mother turned to Feng Bujue with pride. Haha, I can see that as well. You're the strongest of the four of you, right? Their attacks are like scratching an itch. As for you, I can still look forward to it. As she spoke, she controlled the body parts in the air to surround Brother Ju. Come on, use your ultimate or something to make me happy, or else. Stop looking down on me, you stupid insect. Atobi yelled from afar to interrupt the silkworm mother, and successfully attracted her attention. What did you just call me? The silkworm mother seemed to be very dissatisfied with the term, stupid insect. She gave up on attacking Brother Ju, and used impossibly high speed to twist her body around to face Atobi. I dare you to say that again, human. I can say it as many times as I want. Atobi gasped for air. Under the immense pressure and fear, he tried his best to steady himself. Glaring at the boss before him, he said, You are so disgusting. Just looking at you makes me want to vomit. The more he spoke, the louder his voice became. The last few words were practically screamed from his throat. Atobi was not some top player, at least not yet. He was not Feng Bujue. He was not a drug addict like Zombie Blade. Atobi was just a normal person. When facing a boss, he would feel fear. That was human nature. When facing those scary monsters, demons, ghosts, and monsters, as long as one was a normal person, they would feel fear. They would feel that way even before a computer screen, much less in virtual reality. At that moment, facing a murderous silkworm that was fatter than a train, it was already good enough that Atobi was not shaking because his brain kept reminding him that this was just a game. However, after roaring out those 2 sentences, he suddenly felt a little better. Fear, pressure, and the fear of his friends being killed seemed to have been washed away by that roar. Perhaps when he faced the thing that he was afraid of, he realized that it was nothing more than that damn scum. The silkworm mother was angered. She raised her large head and slammed it down, aiming to crush Atobi into meat paste. TSK. You're not that fast. Atobi took a step back and barely dodged the attack. At the same time, he mocked the boss before him. Ah! The silkworm mother was completely angered. She wiggled her body and charged forward. Her circular mouth opened to reveal rows of sharp teeth like she was going to swallow Atobi whole. Hoo! 3 powerful blades of light came from behind and landed on the silkworm mother's back. Do you think I'm dead? Brother Ju's voice rang out again. Naturally, he was not dead, but he was heavily injured. However, after he used Jeppo to escape from the encirclement, he attacked the boss immediately. Unfortunately, the silkworm mother ignored the 3 Rankyaku attacks, and her speed did not slow down at all. Thankfully, Sai. It's because you guys are so reckless that the plan can't keep up with the changes. Hong Hu raised one of his arms, and a silver cross appeared in his hand. Sorcery Circle. Name: Sorcery Circle Skill Card Attribute. Active, permanent skill type. Sorcery Effect. Uses powerful sorcery to suppress all living creatures within a certain range. Consumption: 50% of maximum sorcery points learning requirement. Sorcery C, level 35 and above, remark. 20 minutes cooldown, 20 seconds duration. ineffective against machine-type or soulless creatures. Effects on boss-level monsters will be weakened accordingly, based on the strength of the boss. Cannot be cancelled midway. Phase must be placed at the array cores in the diagram below. Phase can be non-physical objects of the same nature. Chapter 577. Before Hong Hu finished, a hexagonal circle of light appeared on the surface of the leaf, and it surrounded the Silkworm Queen's giant body. At that moment, the Silkworm Queen's aggressive charge suddenly stopped. She was pinned to the side of the circle, unable to move an inch. In terms of effect, Ambitionist's ability was very powerful, but it was very difficult to actually use it. The main difficulty was the requirement of phase must be placed in the center of the formation in the diagram below. The diagram below referred to a rather complicated spirit seed diagram. After adding sorcery seed formation into the skill tab, the player would be able to see this pattern in the skill description window. In a direct battle, there was only one way for Hong Hu to use this skill, and that was to use light arrows, non-physical phase of the same nature, to accurately mark the location of the formation's eye and then make his move. But the problem was, during this period, there was an 80% chance that the enemy would have left the range of the formation. The size of the formation had to be controlled within a certain range, and it could not be too big or too small. In other words, his meticulous planning for half a day was very likely to be in vain. Of course, there were other ways to set up the formation, like setting up a magic circle in a certain area and waiting for the target to take the bait. Hong Hu had used this trap to kill a scenario boss before, and the fey he had used at the time was a string of prayer beads. But chances like that were rare, and the Devil's Maw Island scenario did not have that kind of condition. Thankfully, the Silkworm Queen had a huge weakness, and that was underestimating her enemy. It was her underestimation of her enemy that caused her to fight with a playful attitude. It was her underestimation of her enemy that caused her to give up on dealing the final blow to Feng Bujue. It was also her underestimation of her enemy that caused her to overlook Ambitionist's strange behavior. Actually, the joint attack by Hong Hu, Unrestrained Pegasus, and Atobi was just a cover. In the initial plan that the players had agreed on, sorcery seed formation was the key. Be it Plan A, which was to split up to save the players, or Plan B, which was to focus on killing the boss, both required the cover of this skill. If Plan A went smoothly, the players would be able to escape under the protection of this move. If they had no choice but to switch to Plan B, the Spirit Fixation Array could also be used as a powerful control move in battle, providing space for the players to attack. Considering the low practicality of this tactic, Ambitionist came up with a method to fool the enemy. He, Brother Ma, and Atobi would attack at the same time, and each of them would use a ranged attack of similar power to create the illusion that the three of them were attacking at the same time. But in fact, every time Hong Hu shot a few arrows, he would plant a longer-lasting light arrow at a specific location. With the cooperation of his teammates, even if the Silkworm Queen noticed this, she would only think that the light arrows had missed. "Quick, do it!" Hong Hu shouted after the skill hit its target. "This stinky bug is very strong. The Spirit Fixation Array can't be maintained for more than 20 seconds. We'll finish her off in 10 seconds. He was right. The light circle had just been activated, but it had already started to flicker. This was not a good sign. Looks like the depletion of spiritual droplets is much faster than expected. If this continues, we won't even last 10 seconds, much less 20 seconds, phew. Atobi took a deep breath. After shaking off his fear, the desire for battle burned in his eyes. "Okay, I'll go first." Then, he put away the peacock screen and started to attack with his bare hands. His right hand grabbed at the air, and a ball of white mist gathered. The tip of the ice condensed to 3 feet, and the light shone 10 feet. A long sword made from frost quickly appeared in Atobi's hand. A sorcery weapon? This was Feng Bujue's first reaction, but now was not the time to ask that question, so he naturally did not say it out loud. "Ha!" Atobi grunted. He raised the sword with his right hand and twirled it half a circle above his head. Then, he placed the blade before his forehead. His left hand reached out with 2 fingers to touch the blade. The blade was then enveloped in a white glow. Ice wheel slashing mirror. White spirit energy radiated from Atobi's body, and it rushed into the sky. The ice sword in his hand swung diagonally. Ching! The sword slashed forward, and the sound of ice breaking armor echoed through the air. The crystal-clear energy slammed into the silkworm mother, and in 1 second she was sealed in ice. How could something like that happen? The silkworm mother gasped in shock. At that moment she realized that she had underestimated her opponents. The silkworm mother was cruel and violent, and in terms of power she did have the right to be arrogant. But she should not have been so careless when facing these travelers from another world, because they were humans. No matter how much the creatures of the multiverse looked down on humans, they could not deny the power of these creatures. This power did not come from the power of physical evolution or mental state, and it definitely did not come from the superiority of technology. The scariest thing about humans is their unpredictability. This was something that Xingshi had once told the silkworm mother, and she finally understood it. A race with endless possibilities was the most dangerous enemy. "It's still not over yet." Feng Bujue reacted quickly. He saw the carcasses moving slowly in the air, and he knew that the silkworm mother was still alive. Remove the source of the problem. While reminding his teammates, Brother Ju also made his move. Without hesitation, he activated the spiritual sense bodybuilding technique. Modified. He strode forward and followed up with the Southern Dipper Flying Dragon Fist. "I'll help as well." Unrestrained Pegasus also stood up from the leaf. He wiped the blood from his nose and used Pegasus Meteor Punch again. At that moment, the light from the spirit sealing circle disappeared. Hong Hu, who had his hands free, pulled back his bow and used the rest of his spirit energy to activate Explosive Spirit. Slash, combo, pierce, 3 different directions, 3 different ultimate skills. The silkworm mother, who was sealed by ice wheel slashing mirror, could not evade. She could only bet everything on this one attack. With the determination to die together with the enemy, she roared and attacked. "Ja!" A sound that felt tangible burst out from the silkworm mother's body and spread out like a wave. The players did not back down. Braving the impact of the sound wave, they used their skills as well. Instantly, light flashed and explosions were heard. The rampaging energy intertwined and clashed above the leaves, creating a bloody storm. Several seconds later, the dust settled and the result was clear. The silkworm mother's body shattered into hundreds of blood-filled ice lumps. The players half knelt on the ground and gulped down life potions. "Ha! Ha!" Atobi gasped for air. After wiping away the blood from his nose, he suddenly laughed. "Ha! Ha! We won." Sigh. Feng Bujue sighed. "No, in a way we still lost." Chapter 578. The loss that Feng Bujue referred to was naturally not the loss of the battle but the failure of the side quest. When the silkworm mother let out her dying roar, there was another sound. But at the time, the players' ears were suffering from extreme pain, so they had no time to pay attention to the other sound. Only Brother Ju seemed to have caught on to something. As someone who was used to multitasking, he would not miss any detail. In that split second, he instinctively glanced at the game menu and discovered that Uncle Worthless was dead. Indeed, the sound that was drowned out by the roar was the system announcement. "Team member, Uncle Worthless has died." What? When Hong Hu heard Brother Ju, he reacted quickly and noticed the change in the team tab. "TSK. We still miscalculated." After Flying Pegasus and Atobi drank the life points recovery potions, they habitually opened the game menu to check on the recovery of their life points, so they soon discovered Uncle Worthless' death. Actually, there is nothing wrong with that. Feng Bujua shrugged. We tried our best, but we still failed to save Uncle Worthless. We can only blame the monsters in this scenario for being too intelligent. He continued in a helpless tone. I believe, at the last moment, the silkworm mother probably knew that she was going to die, so she decided to drag someone down with her. No, I was too careless. Hong Hu shook his head. I should have told you earlier. He turned to Brother Ju. You weren't affected, so you didn't know when the silkworm mother controlled the victim's 5 senses, the victim's 5 senses would be greatly amplified. During that period, my sight, hearing, touch, smell, and taste were all giving me plenty of information that was enough to cause fear. Yes, that is super scary, Toby chimed in. Especially the sound coming from inside my own body, it is too creepy. Hong Hu nodded and continued. I forgot to take that into consideration when I came up with the strategy. Since Uncle Worthless was captured by the silkworm mother, he must be in the state of super 5 senses. Being hit by the roar in that kind of situation, the damage to the brain is unimaginable, he said with some regret. Sigh. If not for my miscalculation, perhaps we could have come up with a better strategy. Pfft. After holding it in for a second, Feng Bujua actually laughed. Ha, what's wrong? Hong Hu narrowed his eyes and looked at him. I'm mocking you, Brother Ju replied with an expression that was asking for a beating. You call yourself a wise general? You're just an idiot. Ha. How did you manage to live until you're in your 20s? Hong Hu grumbled. It is a miracle that you haven't been beaten to death. Suddenly, the laughter stopped. Feng Bujue only used half a second to pull back his smile and put on a serious expression. All right, you've been insulted and despised by me. Can you stop blaming yourself now? Hong Hu replied woodenly. The way you console others is quite unique. He thought about it for a few seconds. Even though my remorse and guilt haven't decreased, my attention has been diverted by you. I have to say, you've pulled a good aggro. You flatter me, Feng Bujua said. All right, let's not dwell on it anymore. Toby sprawled on the leaf. Since things have come to this, why don't we rest for a while? After all, the main mission has no time limit, so I suggest we rest where we are and move after we're fully recovered. That's not a bad idea. Feng Bujua also drank a bottle of potion. Brother Ju always had 5 medium bottles of life points recovery potion in his inventory, and he drank one of them. He stood up and said, But we can't rest here. We'd better find another place, and we have to be quick. Why is that? Flying Horse asked with confusion. Of course, it's for safety. Hong Hu also stood up and pushed on his glasses. Now that the tiger is gone from the mountain, the monkeys will soon come out to call themselves king. Flying Horse thought about it for a few seconds before he understood the metaphor. You mean, this place is the mountain, and the Silkworm Queen is the tiger? Yes, Hong Hu replied. In this crystal maze, the Silkworm Queen is undeniably the king. Now that she's dead, many creatures that are only second to her have lost their natural predator. Once they realize that, they will come here and try to take over this area. Beep. Then we'd better run. Toby jumped up from the ground. I can't fight anymore. Flying Horse also stood up with his hands on his knees. Yes, even heroes need to rest. For example, if the light on their chest flashes for too long, they'll need to fly away. I get it now. Feng Bujua sighed. You don't need to use the aliens from Nebula M78 as an example. 5 minutes later, on a path southeast of Kuba ping ping ping, the sound of Bill moving on the crystal was quite loud. His weight and metallic feet made it impossible for him to keep a low profile. We're almost there. Billy, who rode ahead on the tricycle, said without turning his head. In terms of time. He lowered his head to look at his watch. We're a few minutes late. There seems to be something fighting ahead, Bill said with his head up. Although the top of the crystal path was covered by a pinkish-white net, Bill seemed to be able to know what was happening not far away. Billy answered weakly. It's just two ignorant and greedy beasts fighting. Do you want me to clean it up? Bill raised his left hand and clenched his right hand into a fist. If you want to do it, go ahead. Billy saw his younger brother's eagerness and thought it was funny. You've been locked up for a long time. Take this opportunity to warm up. Okay, Bill replied in an excited tone. In the next second, he stomped his right leg on the ground. With a bang, a large chunk of the incomparably hard crystalline crust was actually shattered by his stomp, and everything within 100 meters of him was shaken. Billy, who was riding on the tricycle, bounced a few centimeters off the ground along with the tricycle. After landing, he helplessly spread out his hands, adjusted his little bow tie, and continued to pedal forward. On the other side, Bill's large body shot out like a cannonball, rushing toward the top of Kuba. This silk is so annoying, Bill muttered in midair as he tore off the layers of net covering his face. After the silkworm queen died, all the nets in the crystal maze lost their special properties and became normal silk. Even if they accidentally stuck to the body, they could be torn off easily. Roar! A strange roar came from the front. Bill looked carefully, and a huge beast entered his line of sight. This beast had the head of a pig and the body of a dog. Its body was huge, and it had black fur, hard spikes, and red eyes. It could see in the dark. It liked to eat rotten things and lived in dark and damp places. According to the classic of mountains and seas, it was a red-eyed boar demon. On the other side of Kuba, there was a slender humanoid demon made of vines standing there. It seemed to be facing off against the red-eyed boar demon. In between the two creatures, there was a pile of body parts, and blood was flowing out. Judging from the number and size, this pile was undoubtedly the Silkworm Queen's body. They're here to fight over this pile of rotten meat. Bill laughed. Same as me. Hey! He shouted, and with the momentum of falling, he punched the red-eyed boar demon that was closer to him. The red-eyed boar demon was a rare beast in the crystal maze, and it was very powerful. Facing an uninvited guest like Bill, it did not want to be outdone. It raised the sharp teeth on both sides of its nose and attacked. Unexpectedly, gulp! The sound of bones breaking announced the result of this attack. Bill's iron fist easily broke the sharp teeth of the red-eyed boar demon, and he did it with only one hand. Just now, when he was close to the enemy, Bill changed his stance slightly. He swung his fist at lightning speed and threw a horizontal punch. Only the one who was hit by this punch could understand the terror of this punch. It seemed like a simple and unadorned attack, but it contained unparalleled power and speed. There were no fancy special effects, no flashy name of the move. In fact, this punch could not even be considered a move. It was just a simple movement, but it was powerful. This was absolute power without any modification or flaw. The body of steel, the strength of 10,000 caddies, and the speed of the wind. This was the primitive war puppet Bill. In terms of data, his design could be said to be simple. If an anomaly saw Bill and Billy appear at the same time, they would not be able to tell that these two sets of data were brothers. But being simple did not mean that it was weak. In Bill's simple design, the only thing that could be praised was the value of the various data. It was only in this aspect that he wasn't inferior to the four pillar gods in any way. If one had to make an analogy, Billy was like a smartphone from the next generation. It was exquisitely made and had many functions. And Bill was like an old-fashioned phone made from titanium. He could only use it to make calls and send messages, but it was not cheaper than Billy. The red-eyed boar demon wailed. Its broken teeth fell out from its mouth and tore at the flesh inside its mouth. But it didn't even care about the pain. The strong fear and survival instinct made it jump down from the leaf and run away, hee. Seeing the boar demon escape, the vine monster chuckled wickedly before raising its eyes to look at Bill. "Even though I have no idea where you came from, you look quite powerful." Hee. It wiggled its vine body and slowly walked forward. It used a patch of brambles to surround Bill. "How about this? You become my subordinate, and we will rule this land together." Cough, caw. Bill gripped the neck of the vine monster with one hand and laughed wickedly. "You are dumber than a pig, you bean sprout." Chapter 579. After jumping down from the leaf, the players headed north. For them, it was the same no matter where they went. Only the creatures of this universe could tell the direction of the island. The further they were from the silkworm mother's nest, the wider the crystal path became, and the number of forks decreased correspondingly. After walking for half an hour, the four of them arrived at a spacious area. Then, they stopped and officially started to rest. Toby lay down again. "This time, I'm not leaving even if you kill me. Let me lie down for at least 2 hours." "I agree wholeheartedly," Flying Horse added. As he spoke, he also lay down. On the other side, Hong Hu leaned against the wall and said, "I feel blisters forming on the soles of my feet, but I can't remove my shoes, and I can't see anything strange in my status bar." Then, just bear with it." Feng Bujua laughed. Hong Hu sighed. This reminds me. Next time, when I go shopping for fashion, I'd better choose sports shoes." He was currently wearing cloth boot. After Brother Ma took several deep breaths on the ground, he asked, "Are you guys hungry? I feel like I have a craving for food again." I feel the same," Feng Bujua said thoughtfully. "It has been less than 3 hours since we last ate, so theoretically speaking, the hunger shouldn't be so obvious. Looks like the hunger effect in this scenario is much faster than in real life." "Perhaps it's because we're exhausted," Toby said. "And we weren't even full from the previous meal." "Impossible." Feng Bujue denied it immediately. "I'm not like you guys, who have a desire for food due to psychological resistance," he said proudly. "I only stopped when I was 90% full." "What are you trying to say?" Toby narrowed his eyes. "Are you trying to say that you're a maniac who eats people whole?" "No, Brother Feng is trying to say something about the rhythm of eating," Hong Hu interrupted. Feng Bujue snapped his fingers and added, "That's right. As you can see, I, who am 90% full, and you, who are only 60% full, will feel hungry again at about the same time." As he spoke, he took something out from his backpack. As soon as they saw what he took out, the expressions of his teammates changed. Hey, there's no need for that, right?" Toby was the first to yell. "Don't we already have the lamb? Why are you taking out Walker's body?" "First of all, these are not body parts. They are food reserves that I roasted and stored," Feng Bujua replied calmly. "Secondly, don't worry. I'm not going to eat them. Even if you want to eat, I won't force you to." He raised the piece of meat and placed it on his palm. "I'm taking this piece of meat out for an explanation." "Fine," Toby replied helplessly. He understood that even if he said something bad, he wouldn't be able to stop this madman's actions. This piece of meat was cut from Walker's back, the tenderloin. Feng Bujue continued. "Based on my estimation." He actually weighed it in his hand before saying, "It weighs between 540 grams and 570 grams. Can you please get to the point? Stop doing this." Even Brother Ma held his forehead to advise him. "Stop what?" Brother Ju shrugged. "Stop doing something so scary like this," Hong Hu added. "Perhaps it might seem like nothing to you, but you have to consider the feelings of normal people like us. You're holding a piece of meat cut from a humanoid creature and describing its weight and location like a professional butcher. That will scare people." Okay. Feng Bujue accepted the advice, but he had no intention of changing his mind. "In any case, just pretend that this piece of meat is 550 grams. He gestured with his finger on the meat and said, "In the sacrificial hall, the portion I ate was about 500 grams, and each of you only ate less than 350 grams." He paused for a moment, "But now we feel hungry almost at the same time." At this point, Fong Bujua raised his eyes to look at his teammates. "Have you noticed the problem? Your appetite is 30% bigger than ours." Brother Ma used his elementary school mathematics knowledge to answer. His answer was so ridiculous that Fong Bujue did not even bother to argue with him. "I get it now." Hong, who seemed to have come to a conclusion. Eating 90% full and 60% full is essentially the same thing. "Yes." Fong Bujue nodded. "We should have thought of that a long time ago. This game does not have a setting related to excretion, so the process of us digesting food cannot be completely simulated. Obviously, in this scenario, the so-called eating is merely a way to relieve the feeling of hunger. It has nothing to do with intake of nutrients or metabolism." He put the piece of meat away. "In a way, we are very similar to zombies. We eat purely because we are hungry." "So, it doesn't matter how much we eat?" Atobi asked. "That is not necessarily the case," Fong Bujua answered. "I believe, to temporarily eliminate the negative effect of hunger, we have to eat until we are at least 50% full. After that, the feeling of hunger will disappear, and if we continue to eat, we will be rushing toward the feeling of fullness." He scratched his chin. "Therefore, I suggest, every time we eat, we only eat until we are half full." "I agree." Hong, who was quick to agree. "That way, as long as the amount of food remains the same, we can maintain this state for a longer time. Whatever, 50% is fine. Come on, let's barbecue the lamb," Flying Horse said as he pulled himself up from the ground. "Fine." As Fong Bujua spoke, he took out the branch from the tree of mockery and was ready to start a fire. "If I ask you to eat Walker's meat now, I don't think any of you will agree." At the same time on the Kuyi, Bill stood on the leaf and yelled at Billy, who was below him, "Am I supposed to just roll up like this?" It was unknown when, but there were many bloody skeletons on the nearby crystal path. Most of them were beasts that had come from other places. Some were attracted by the smell of blood, some by the smell of death, and some were there to take over the position of the mother silkworm. However, they were all killed by Bill without exception. After all, these creatures were only living creatures on the Defiant Island. Even the mother silkworm was the most powerful among them, but compared to the prisoners on the island, there was still a gap. Even Resend, who the players encountered first, was as powerful as the mother silkworm. Not to mention the hidden boss, Fu Ling. If Fu Ling was sealed, it would not take much effort to push the mother silkworm into the feces and drown it. "How can you roll it up?" Billy replied from below. "Do you think this is a natto roll? If you do this, the body parts will come out from both ends." "Then what should I do?" Bill asked. "Wrap it up like how you wrap a dumpling," Billy replied. Bill thought for a few seconds, and a confused expression appeared on his face. "But there is no thread to tie the dumpling. Can't you just use the vine monster that you killed earlier to tie it up?" Billy asked again. That's right." Bill's face was filled with XD emoticons. "Haha. Using local materials." Sigh. Billy shook his head. "He's still so unreliable, and he doesn't like to use his brain." He sighed. "Hopefully, staying with the Count of Script for some time will help him grow." Bill, who was high up, did not hear his brother's nagging. He was using his fingers to cut the leaves of the Phorophobia. The Phorophobia was naturally not a normal large leaf, or else the mother silkworm would not have chosen this place as her nest. In terms of hardness, the Phorophobia was not as tough as the crystals around it, but its tenacity was amazing. No matter the kind of damage, the Phorophobia could repair itself in a short amount of time. For the mother silkworm, when she could not catch any prey, this leaf was her breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and it could never be finished. At that moment, Bill planned to use this characteristic of the phorophobia to cut and pull out one of the leaves to wrap up the mother silkworm's body. Bang 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 bang! With the sound of metal rubbing against leather, the cutting started. Bill's fingers could transform to a certain extent. As long as he wanted, his 5 fingers could transform into 5 small chainsaws. Small was relatively speaking. The width of one of Bill's fingers was close to that of a human's palm, or 5 hammers, 5 screwdrivers, and so on. These little tricks were nothing to him. He saw it as he walked, and as he pulled, he moved around the mother silkworm's body, working slowly. When the phorophobia was damaged, it started to heal itself. The layer of leaf meat on its surface had just been peeled off, and new plant fibers had started to grow out from the cut. Therefore, there was no need to worry about the leaf falling from the sky. Soon, Bill finished the preparation. He used the leaf meat that he had cut out to wrap up the mother silkworm's body. Soon, he had wrapped all the pieces of the mother silkworm's body into a triangular leaf dumpling. Billy, who was watching from below, saw that his brother's hands were too busy, so he used his psychokinesis to help. He waved his finger, and the body of the vine monster was pulled into a neat long strip. It flew up to the phorophobia to finish the binding. Okay, it's done. Bill stood next to the big phorophobia and patted the thing beside him with a sense of accomplishment. Pick it up and follow me, Billy said. Huh! Bill was startled. We're still not leaving this island? Yes. Billy lowered his head to look at his watch. I still have to visit someone, and then we'll leave. I say, does this count as night falling? Unrestrained Pegasus asked as he looked at the dimming crystals around them. By then, the players had finished their food and had rested for 1.5 hours. For the first 10 minutes, they were still nervous, afraid that the system would give them an AFK-like evaluation. But half an hour passed, and there was still no response. Everyone sighed in relief. It looked like in this scenario, the system approved of the act of resting. Who knows? Fong Bujue replied. There is no sun, moon, or stars in the sky. He added in his mind, perhaps there is no concept of sky here. Who knows what we will see when we lift our heads up? Who knew what the flow of time was like here? Perhaps one night here is 30 hours long. Perhaps the reflection in the sky is the real Devil's Maw Island and this place we are in is just a mirror, or perhaps the creatures here will transform at night. For us who cannot even differentiate north from south, east from west, we are indeed helpless. Hong Hu added. Fine. Unrestrained Pegasus placed his hands behind his head. It does not matter. Even if all these crystals stop shining, we still have the fire and other lighting devices. The problem is... Fong Bujue's eyes shifted slightly. If the entire crystal maze is completely dark, is it really a good idea for us to stay close to the light source? Yes, that will attract monsters, Atobi added. Hong Hu added, yes. If there is a so-called night here, then there will be nocturnal creatures as well. If that happens, it is indeed inappropriate for us to stay close to such an obvious source of light. Then, how is everyone's stamina points recovering? Fong Bujue suddenly asked. It's much better than I expected. It's already at 60%, Ambitionist replied. Me too, Atobi added. About the same, Unrestrained Pegasus added. Okay, then let's prepare to depart, Fong Bujue said as he stood up and patted the crystal dust off his body. Huh! Atobi said with surprise. Hey, the surroundings are getting darker. That's why we have to move, Fong Bujue replied. Our human eyes are not used to darkness. No matter what, we need light to see. Whether we stay where we are or keep moving, the lights will not go off either way. If that's the case, why don't we use our flashlights to scout ahead? Unrestrained Pegasus also stood up and stretched his body. We have stayed here for long enough. It's time to move. Staying where we are or leaving, which is more dangerous? Hong Hu asked. I have my reservations. He turned to Atobi. Atobi, what do you think? Atobi was stunned. He had become the decision-maker. This was a rare situation. Atobi hesitated before saying, I think we should go. We have to complete the mission. Actually, he did not think too much about it. He was leaning toward Feng Bujue's side. At that moment, instead of following his instinct, he would rather follow his brother Ju's plan. Thus, under the principle of majority rule, Ambitionist also accepted the suggestion to take action, and the four of them set off again. What they did not know was, the scariest danger in the scenario was slowly approaching. Chapter 580. West of the Crystal Maze, Ocean Gazing Reef. There was a long and narrow beach here. At the junction of the beach and the sea there were many black reef. The most eye-catching reef was about 5 meters tall. It was in the shape of a human skull and stood facing the sea. This skull-shaped reef was the Ocean Gazing Reef, which was how this place got its name. Outside the crystal maze, one could see the real sky. Therefore, the people at the Ocean Gazing Reef could see the red sun setting in the west. Creak, creak, creak. The sound of a metal shaft turning was heard again. This announced that a small tricycle was approaching. Long time no see. Billy quickly stopped the car beside the big reef and said, On the Gazing Sea Reef, a lonely figure was standing alone, admiring the afterglow of the setting sun. He did not turn his head. He only replied calmly, What a rare guest. Are you here to save your brother? I already saved him, Billy said. He raised his small arm and pointed in the direction he came from. Look, he's waiting for me over there. The man on the reef turned his head and glanced at Billy, who was a few hundred meters away. Ha! What's that beside him? Dumplings wrapped in leaves? The man asked with a chuckle. Yes, and the filling is the flesh of a silkworm mother, Billy replied. Whatever. The man shrugged and replied in an indifferent tone. He then said, Tell me why you're here. Sigh. New clothes are not as good as new, and old friends are not as good as old friends. Billy said sadly, I'm just here to visit an old friend. Do I really need a reason? He paused for a moment before continuing, Xing sure, we studied under the same teacher after all, so we can be considered as fellow disciples. Why do you have to? Don't give me that. Torture Master angrily interrupted Billy. He turned around and glared at Billy. Seeing you makes me angry. Torture Master said coldly. I'll always remember what that old man said before he chased me away. You're just a sadist and Billy is the artist. You can only bring pain to others, but he can bring salvation to others. This is a great insult. As he spoke, he lifted his leg and took a light step forward. He jumped off the sea-gazing reef and stood in front of the tricycle. Up close, the appearance of this Xing clan god was almost the same as a human. He was about 1.9 meters tall and had a medium build. His skin was fair and his long gray hair was draped over his shoulders. He had a very serious face, a wide forehead, cold eyes, a bulbous nose, thick lips, and a wide chin. He even had 2 curly Mexican mustaches. How could that old man have known? Punisher continued, years later, I would become one of the gods of the multiverse, the most capable assistant of the Master of Time, the chief designer of the Devil's Maw Island, and you are just a piece of trash that fell into chaos, a fugitive. Even before you became a fugitive, you were nothing more than a juror in the court of truth. He sneered. What a great irony. I'm just here to see you, Billy said. You don't have to say that, ha. Punisher cut him off. Is that so? I really didn't know that you and I were in a relationship where we could visit each other. He stroked his beard and looked down at Billy. Even though we came from the same master, you and I have never been on the same side, right? Even an idiot like your younger brother can see that. Watch your words. Billy's tone suddenly turned cold. I'm sorry. Punisher bent down and put his face close to Billy's. Your brother is not an idiot, he's a big idiot. We haven't seen each other for more than 100 years, and you've gotten better at making people hate you, Billy said in a low voice. His eyes glowed with a strange light, and it seemed like he wanted to kill. However, he held himself back. Humph. Never mind. Suddenly, Billy retracted his murderous intent and said calmly, After all, you don't have much time left, huh? Punisher straightened up and asked with a confused expression, What did you say? Ha ha. Billy laughed. You'll find out soon enough. As he said that, he turned the tricycle around and rode toward Bill. What the hell? Punisher mumbled to himself. Then, he shouted at Billy, Did you come here just to tell me this nonsense? What is this? What do you mean by this? Billy still did not answer his question. He continued without turning his head. Whether you appreciate it or not. Since we're from the same master, I'll give you 2 more pieces of advice. First, don't believe what you see on the surface. Second, don't underestimate the guy who's better at making people hate him than you. On the other hand, it was back to the players. After leaving the resting spot, Brother Jew and the others walked at a leisurely pace for another hour. During this time, the light on the surrounding crystals became dimmer and dimmer. Finally, they stopped shining. The reflection of the Devil Chomp Island above their heads also turned pitch black. Of course, this was not a big deal. For Brother Jew, who always prepared for the worst, this was to be expected. But the problem was, after the sky turned dark, something even stranger happened. At some point in time, an eye had appeared in the pitch-black sky. Yes, it was one eye, not a pair, it was a giant white eye. Its eye sockets and sclera seemed to be burning with white flames, and its pupil was an amber vertical line. All the creatures in the crystal maze, including the players, no matter when, where, and from what angle they looked at the sky, they would feel like this eye was staring at them. When they first discovered this thing, the 4 players were on guard for a while, afraid that the sky would shoot down something like a laser. But after a few minutes of observation, they realized that the eye did not do anything strange. Perhaps it was just a method used by the system to create pressure. I say, this place is a bit too quiet. Brony, who walked in the middle of the group, said. Actually, it's just as quiet during the day. Hong Hu, who was responsible for covering the back, added, but when there's enough light, people tend to rely more on their sight, so you didn't notice. Speaking of sight, Atobi, who was at the front, added, do you think the eye in the sky could be the gaze of disbelief? Feng Bujue had gotten the names of all 4 guards from Fu Ling and had told his teammates about them. Not necessarily. Brother Jew, who walked at the front, turned his head back half-jokingly. Perhaps that is Sauron with cataracts. Sauron, a fictional character in Tolkien's novel. Brother Jew was referring to the spirit Sauron in the Third Age. He often appeared in the form of an eye, or perhaps it is just a backdrop that looks like an eyeball. What are you doing? You've used up most of the jokes from Journey to the West already. Are you going to use the Lord of the Rings joke? Atobi narrowed his eyes. You're ready to make more jokes about Frodo and Sam, aren't you? I'm just trying to lighten the mood with a joke. Feng Bujue said. We've been looking around aimlessly for an hour already, and there's still no progress. Combined with this kind of oppressive atmosphere, it's easy to lose focus. You're the one who's going to make us lose focus. Atobi added. Ha! Feng Bujue scoffed and turned back to look at his teammate. Haven't you guys been rambling before I said anything? He paused as if to give them time to think. Perhaps you haven't realized, the environment has already started to influence you. Since the surroundings completely darkened, the longest silence that you've had only lasted for 3 minutes. Think about it. Every 3 minutes, you'll be unable to stop yourself from saying something meaningless to ease the tension. That's because, if you continue to be silent, the darkness and silence will start to disturb your thoughts and increase the fear in your heart. Based on what you've said, You're telling me you're not affected by darkness and silence? Atobi asked. About that, hee. Feng Bujue used the hee technique to evade this question. Alright, I understand what you mean. Hong Hu cut in. To put it simply, staying silent will cause your mind to wander, and talking too much will distract you. And a proper conversation can maintain a good mental state. That's right. Feng Bujue nodded. So, every 2 minutes we'd better, suddenly, his words came to an abrupt halt, and so did his footsteps. Hey. Brother Ju's tone suddenly changed. He had obviously seen something. There seems to be something in front of us. Hearing that, his teammates all took a few steps forward. Everyone looked in the direction of the light of the composite anti-gravity catapult and saw a black shadow swaying in the wind. The shadow floated in the air, and there was a rope around its neck. Due to the distance, the players could only see the silhouette of a person, but they had no idea what it looked like up close. However, they knew that based on the usual behavior of this game, if they got too close, they would trigger a scare event. He probably didn't hang himself. Brony lowered his voice and muttered softly. How do you know? Atobi whispered back. There's no stool next to his feet, Brother Ma replied. It's normal that there's no stool. Feng Bujue scratched his head. His feet are 2 meters above the ground. Did he hang himself from a lifeguard's lookout chair? Also, look at the rope around his neck. The other end of the rope is directly tied to the crystal at the top instead of going around the crystal to tie a knot. So, according to my conjecture, there are 2 possibilities. The first is suicide. The process is, he climbed up the crystal, tied one end of the rope around his neck, and tied the other end to the crystal before jumping down from there. The second is homicide. Then there are many ways to do it. You'd better stop before going too far. Ambitionist lowered his voice and cut off their nonsense. Is this the time to be playing games of deduction? What do you mean by homicide? The method and method have nothing to do with each other. This is obviously some kind of event that can be triggered. You'd better be serious. You have a point. Feng Bujue's expression turned serious as he nodded. How about this? I'll go sweep the mines to get a feel of the situation. You guys wait for me here. I'm surprised that you're volunteering to face such a scary scenario? Atobi asked. What's so scary about that? Feng Bujue chuckled lightly. It's just a hanging body. How scary can it be? Good, you've got guts. Flying Pegasus turned around and patted Brother Ju on his shoulder. You said guts, didn't you? Feng Bujue turned around and used a wicked gaze to look at Brother Ma. Yes, just pretend I didn't say anything. Flying Pegasus could smell the conspiracy in the air. But Brother Ju would not let him go so easily. Feng Bujue placed his hand on Flying Pegasus' shoulder and pushed him several steps forward. Good. As a hero with more guts than me, I believe you can't hold yourself back anymore. Why don't you grab a random weapon and charge forward, and we'll cover you from behind. That sounds familiar. By the way, why am I the first to Before Brother Ma could finish, he was pushed forward. He had no idea why, but after a few sentences that did not seem out of place, he had become the Pathfinder, Fufu. Fufu, the hanging body was still swaying in the air, and it made some noise. It sounded like the wind blowing through clothes, or perhaps it was the sound of a taut rope. The closer he got to the dead body, the louder the sound became. After about 20 steps, Flying Pegasus could no longer hear the breathing and whispering of his teammate. He could only hear the strange noises coming from the dead body and his own breathing. Phew. It's fine, it's just a dead body. Flying Pegasus slowed down, and he mumbled to himself, I've seen at least 80 dead bodies in Thriller Paradise, and I've seen this kind of hanging dead body scene at least 100 times in the movies. What's the big deal? His words sounded more like self-consolation. As a hero, how can I retreat here? After another 20 steps, Brother Ma was already less than 5 meters away from his target. Although the corpse's face was covered by hair and could not be seen clearly, during the process of approaching, the heavenly steed held the flashlight high and let the light shine on the corpse's head. This was because Brother Ma had a strange feeling that, once he moved the light away, the dead body would sneak a glance at him. Chapter 581. Moving his feet became more and more difficult, and his shoulders became heavier and heavier. Even the air that entered his lungs became extremely cold, and it caused him to shiver uncontrollably. An inexplicable sense of oppression expanded within a few seconds, and it made it impossible for him to escape. When Flying Horse arrived before the dead body, he was completely enveloped by fear. He wanted to turn around to check on his teammates, but he found that he couldn't move his eyes away. His eyes were glued to the face of the corpse, and his hands were frozen in place uncontrollably, maintaining the upward tilt of the flashlight. At that moment, a deathly silence descended. Flying Horse suddenly could not even hear the sound of his own breathing. It was as if he was standing in a frozen world. His body was shrouded in darkness, and his heart was taken over by fear. It was also at that moment that the dead body stopped moving. He slowly lifted his head to reveal the face that was hidden in the shadows. 2 murky eyeballs moved under his eyelids, and the tongue that dangled from his lips dripped with saliva. He grinned at Flying Horse, but he did not speak. After a few seconds, his fingers twitched twice, and then his whole arm started to move. Then, the dead body raised both of his hands and tried to untie the rope around his neck. But he could not do so because the rope was too tight. Several muffled groans escaped from his throat. It sounded like he was in pain. After a few failed attempts, he started to use his nails to scratch at his own neck. The sound of flesh being cut by nails was interesting. It had a muddy feel to it. It did not take long for the dead body's neck to become a bloody mess. But he did not give up, and he scratched even harder. Blood constantly splashed out and dripped onto Sky Steed's face and body. Finally, a large droplet of blood landed on the glass of the flashlight. And so, everything before Brony's eyes turned bright red. The red light, the dark stage, the gory performance, and the trembling audience. Witnessing this vivid scene at such a close distance undoubtedly increased Flying Horse's terror points, but he could not resist, because he had completely lost control of his body, and he could not even close his eyes. "What's wrong with him?" Hong Hu, who was standing in the distance, asked in a worried tone. Did you find some clues?" Atobi asked. In their line of sight, the hanging corpse dozens of meters away was still floating in the air. Unrestrained Pegasus was standing 2 meters away from the corpse with a flashlight in his hand. "Something's wrong." "He's been standing still for 2 minutes, Feng Bujua said with a serious expression. "I suspect he's been hit by a skill." "Is it some kind of immobilizing skill?" Hong Hu asked as he looked over. But after immobilizing Flying Pegasus, the hanging corpse didn't launch any follow-up attacks. Perhaps, the monster itself cannot move when it activates its skill? Atobi guessed. "That makes sense," Hong Hu said. "Then should we?" He turned to look at Feng Bujua. "Go up and help?" "Yes, we have to go, but it's best if we don't go together," Feng Bujua said. "Think about it, if this is an area of effect skill and will affect everyone who enters its range, then we might be wiped out here." "Then, should we go with one more person?" Atobi asked. "No, 2, Feng Bujua answered and turned to look at Hong Hu. "I'll go with Atobi, you stay here." Hong Hu thought about it for 2 seconds. "You mean, if the situation changes, you'll attack from afar?" Feng Bujua continued Hong Hu's sentence. "Use the light arrow to hit the hanging corpse." "What if the problem is still not solved after I hit it?" Hong Hu asked. "Then you'll have to act according to the situation," Feng Bujua said. "Okay." Hong Hu pushed his glasses up and replied rather helplessly. Hong, who understood that Feng Bujue had given it a lot of thought before deciding to have him stay. The words, "act according to the circumstances," implied a great deal of trust. "Okay then. Atobi." Brother Ju patted Atobi on his shoulder and signaled, "Follow me." Before he finished, he had already walked out. "Hey, aren't you going to ask for my opinion first?" Atobi growled in a whisper. "I haven't agreed to go with you." Feng Bujue heard that and slammed on the brake. He turned to look at the man out of the corner of his eyes. "Are you King coming or not?" In a way, Brother Ju's question was indeed asking for his opinion. "I'm coming." Atobi hesitated for 2 seconds before grabbing the flashlight to follow. "If you're coming, then hurry up," Feng Bujue replied before turning to move forward again. He kept his eyes on the 6 paths, his ears on the 8 directions, and he moved swiftly with the flashlight in his hand. In just a few moments, he was already behind Flying Horse. In Feng Bujue's eyes, the dead body did not become alive, and he did not purposely use the flashlight to shine on the body's face. "Hey, Brother Ma!" Feng Bujue used less than 10 seconds to reach 1 meter behind Flying Horse and called out softly, "It's me, what's wrong?" The 2 sentences left his mouth, but the man did not respond at all. Feng Bujue immediately turned around to say something to Atobi, but to his surprise, Brother Ju turned back and realized that there was only darkness behind him. There was no one there. At that moment, a chill crept up his spine. This was definitely not a psychological effect. Brother Ju was confident about that, but an actual chill. Ha! Facing this creepy situation, Feng Bujue actually laughed. "So, that's how it is," he mumbled to himself. "So, this is the power." Then, he turned around and reached out to grab Flying Horse's shoulder. But just as his hand touched Brother Ma's body, the latter's head fell off and rolled to the ground. Feng Bujue looked at the head that was covered in blood and said in a relaxed tone, "Interesting. Anything else?" "You seem to be." The dead body that hung from the ceiling finally spoke. "Different from the rest." "Why do you say that?" Feng Bujue walked around Brother Ma, like he was taking a stroll in the park, and walked to the dead body. "The fear in your heart," the dead body replied, "can't be induced. Do I need you to tell me that?" Feng Bujue laughed. "And I thought you were going to say that I'm very handsome or something like that." "Humph. Don't get cocky." The dead body scoffed. "You're still under my control." Rewinding time, turning back to Atobi's perspective 1 minute ago, he grabbed the flashlight and followed Brother Ju. They did not speak along the way, and in less than 10 seconds, the two were close to Flying Horse and the hanging dead body. "Hey, are you okay?" Feng Bujue said as he reached out to grab Brother Ma's shoulder. But the latter's head fell from his neck without warning and fell to the ground. Instantly, large amounts of blood poured out from Flying Horse's wound, and it felt like it was raining blood. Faced with this sudden change, Atobi was naturally spooked. He did not know what to do. Right then, the headless body of Flying Horse started to move. He turned around and used the bloody flashlight in his hand to shine at Feng Bujue. When the red light touched Feng Bujue, he groaned in pain, and his body dissolved into a pool of blood under the light. "Ah!" Seeing this, Atobi screamed. As the saying goes, extreme joy begets sorrow, and extreme fear begets anger. Atobi obviously belonged to the latter. Driven by fear, he lost all rational thought and followed his instincts to rush forward. At that moment, the only thought in Atobi's mind was, that headless Flying Horse is definitely not the real person. He has already killed Feng Bujue, so I can't just sit here and wait for my death. After making the decision to attack, Atobi reached into his backpack to take out a weapon. But, what's going on? Atobi's face blanched because he suddenly realized that his backpack was empty. How is this possible? Atobi quickly opened the game menu to check, but he realized with a shock that not only was his backpack empty, even his skill tab was empty. His heart and pupils shrunk at that moment. He moved his gaze up to look at the team tab, and he saw this sentence. No one can save you. Atobi could not believe his eyes. He turned to the status tab and saw that his life points, stamina points, and sorcery points were all empty, and his level showed that he was level 1. Ha ha ha! Suddenly, there was a burst of laughter. Atobi shivered and took 2 steps back before raising his head to look at the source of the laughter. It was the dead body hanging in midair who was laughing, and he was laughing with such satisfaction. Several seconds later, the dead body raised his head to say, "Don't worry, you still have a partner." He paused before adding darkly, "He is now behind you." But almost as soon as the word "behind" left his lips, a bloody hand grabbed Atobi's shoulder. "Don't turn around." Hong Hu's firm voice rang out. "Listen to me, Atobi, there's no need to be afraid. This is all an illusion." That calmed Atobi down slightly. He nodded. "Then what should I do?" "Don't panic, take a look at the quest tab first," Hong Hu said. "Just follow the instructions." "Okay." Atobi forced himself to answer calmly. At the same time, he opened the game menu again and entered the quest tab. Who would have thought that, in the quest tab, it was a sheet of white, and there was a sentence written in blood in the middle of it. "Come to the netherworld to accompany us." At the same time, Hong Hu's voice turned into a mournful wail. "Have you finished reading? Quick, follow the instructions." Chapter 582. In the darkness, Hong Hu waited anxiously. From his perspective, Astral Pegasus, Feng Bujue, and Atobi were all standing under the hanging body, motionless with their flashlights raised. Obviously, Feng Bujue's speculation had come true again. The monster before them did have some kind of Yoi control skill. Fortunately, Ambitionist did not go with them. Otherwise, there was a real possibility that they would all be wiped out. Time ticked by, and the pressure fell on Hong Hu's shoulders. Suddenly, a system announcement appeared in his ears. "Team member, Atobi-sama has died." Almost at the same time, Atobi dissolved into white light and disappeared. Sigh. "Looks like it's time to play it by ear." Hong Hu sighed as he raised the flashlight to look around. In this isolated and helpless situation, he was also in great danger. God knows what else was hiding in the darkness around him. So he had to check the surroundings first before taking action. I should try to attack it. After making the preparation, Hong Hu placed the flashlight on the ground, took out his weapon, and nocked an arrow. After aiming for a short while, a light arrow shot out. Hong Hu's marksmanship mastery was already level A, and he was using a crossbow, which was more controllable than a gun. At this distance, there was no chance of missing. 1 second later, the light arrow flew through the air and hit the dead body's chest. However, this arrow did not stay on the corpse's body. Instead, it pierced through its body. Hong Hu was startled, and his eyes widened. 1 breath later, he said darkly, "An illusion?" His speculation was not wrong. Using a simple elimination method, he came to this conclusion. The light arrow was effective on both spirits and corporeal bodies, so after eliminating these 2 possibilities, the only possibility left was that the dead body was just an illusion. Playing this kind of trick. Hong Hu scoffed. He pulled the bow back and aimed at the rope above the hanging body. Another arrow flew out, and this time, the light arrow hit its target. With just a light touch, the rope snapped. As soon as the rope broke, the corpse hanging from the rope also disappeared. At the same time, unrestrained Pegasus jumped back and cursed a few times in a muffled voice. After landing, he took the opportunity to assume a battle stance and looked around nervously. "It has been removed, right?" Feng Bujue was surprisingly calm. He turned around to look at Brother Ma and Ambitionist before glancing at the game menu. Atobi has died. What happened earlier? His fear had not calmed down. His face was pale, and he looked at Brother Ju in panic. What is going on? Don't panic, it's all an illusion. Feng Bujua replied casually, then turned his head and shouted to Hong Hu in the distance, Hong Hu, we're fine now. Wait. Hong Hu did not believe him. He stood where he was and shouted back, Are you sure? His worries were not unfounded. What if the scene in front of him was also part of a trap? About that, Feng Bujua said as he turned around to look at the rope that had been cut off. I really can't be sure. Before he finished, Brother Ju had already leaped into the air with a stomp. In the blink of an eye, he grabbed the broken rope that was swaying in the wind and yanked it down. Ah! Suddenly, a scream came from above. Even though it was just a scream, unrestrained Pegasus recognized the owner of the voice immediately. It was the person hanging from the rope. Brother Ma was shocked and raised his flashlight to look up. When he looked at it earlier, the other end of the rope was tied to a protruding crystal at the top. But now that he shone the flashlight on it, he realized that there was a strange creature lying on the edge of the crystal, and that rope had come out from the creature's mouth. Ayayaya. That's enough. Stop pulling. Let go. The creature said a few more sentences. Its tone was not eerie at all, and it sounded quite friendly. I can let go if you want. Feng Bujua said, Come down. No, you're up to no good. The creature replied. Come down. Brother Ju said again, I promise I won't kill you. I don't believe you, cried the fellow above. You lunatic. It couldn't pronounce correctly because of its tongue being held down. No, I'm not crazy. Feng Bujua said this in a cold tone, then, he suddenly grinned. He pulled the rope with both hands and started to shake his body. I'm Tarzan. Brother Ju mimicked the signature roar of the animated version of Tarzan, the main character in the novel Tarzan of the Apes by the American author Edgar Rice Burroughs, and his roar echoed in the air. And the strange creature on the crystal used almost the same tone to howl sorrowfully. Flying Pegasus and Ambitionist, who were watching from the sidelines, were at a loss as to what to do. However, Ambitionist quickly regained his senses and quickly walked over to them. Because Brother Ju's behavior at least announced one thing, the danger was gone. Finally, the creature on the crystal came down. If it did not come down, its tongue would be pulled out by the root. Let me introduce. This is one of the 4 guardians of Devil Chomp Island, the Heart of Fear. After Feng Bujua stood still, he pointed at the strange creature on the ground. So, the Heart of Fear did not grow into a heart. Overall, it looked more like a 2-meter-long, pitch-black gecko. It was this creature that killed Atobi? Hong Hu asked with a frown. Killed is not the correct term, Feng Bujua replied. Atobi died because his terror points were overloaded. In other words, he was so scared that he was ejected from the scenario. So those illusions were created by this guy, Brony said in hindsight. The Heart of Fear then turned around on the ground and glared at Brother Ju. Can you let go of my see-through head now? Of course. Feng Bujua instantly let go of the rope and added, See, I'm a man of my word. Is that so? So, you're really a human? The Heart of Fear pulled his tongue back into his mouth and replied in a mocking tone, Then, I'll have to suggest you go see a psychologist. I have, and it was a consultation with several top psychologists and neurologists, Feng Bujua replied. The Heart of Fear lowered his voice. So, you're still undergoing treatment? No, the treatment is already over, Brother Ju replied. Why did you give up on treatment? The Heart of Fear asked. Because after some time, those psychologists and neurologists will become patients as well. Feng Bujua shrugged. Forgive me for interrupting this godlike conversation between the two of you. Ambitionist could not take it anymore. He interrupted, Which one of you can explain what just happened? Is there a need to explain? The Heart of Fear said. Like usual, I found a random place to set down the bait to hunt, and then I ran into you. So, the situation is you ambushed us and killed one of our comrades, Hong Hu said. And now you've fallen into our hands. Yes, the Heart of Fear replied. I'm impressed by your open-minded attitude. Hong Hu narrowed his eyes. Fine. Since you've admitted it, then we'll settle the score. After these few minutes, Flying Horse had basically shaken off the shadow of fear and returned to normal. Therefore, he took 2 steps forward and pointed at the lizard brother on the ground. He roared, "You've been scaring me for so long. Thankfully, I didn't die, and now it's my turn. Feel the wrath of a hero. Don't act rashly." Feng Bujue raised his hand to stop Brother Ma. "It's useless even if you kill it. Atobi won't revive." He paused. "Furthermore, actually, it's not it that's scaring you, but you're scaring yourself." Huh! Flying Horse was confused. "What do you mean?" "Let me explain," the Heart of Fear said. The Heart of Fear continued, "Earlier, when you walked over, I activated my ability, the source of tremors on you. After that, what you saw, heard, touched, and so on, basically depended on your imagination. It nudged its feet and paced back and forth on the ground. For example, when you approached the bait that I released, you were very concerned about his face, so you started to imagine the things that might happen next, the changes that might happen, and so on. Of course, those are just the prelude. The real scares are the things that you don't even dare to imagine. Those things only exist in your subconscious, and that is the change that the source of tremors will induce." At this point, the Heart of Fear raised its flat head to look at Brother Ma. "You're very lucky. Your subconscious's memory of horror is limited, and it limits the space of your imagination, so you didn't die. Haha, but the other kid is different. In any case, Atobi has read more horror movies and novels than you, so his mind is able to come up with more scares." Feng Bujue was worried that Brother Ma might not get it, so he quickly added a few more words to explain. "So what? No matter the reason, you're the one who activated the power." Flying Horse barked at the Heart of Fear. "TSK. I didn't force you into the range of my power. You could have taken a detour or turned back," the Heart of Fear grumbled. "You walked right into my trap, so who is to blame?" "Hey. Then, based on what you're saying, we deserve it?" Flying Horse asked. "Calm down," Feng Bujue advised. "Actually, we are responsible for this as well." His tone was calm and it made people want to listen. At this place, it's very easy to cause a group wipe. The game conversation between players can't be heard by an NPC at the level of the Heart of Fear because it will be blocked by the system. Therefore, the system gave us a hint earlier in the scenario. Brother Ju paused for 2 seconds before repeating the warning given by the Mimic Soul. "If you run into the Heart of Fear, you'd better run at the first notice. You humans are no match for it." He shrugged and continued. "Initially, I was confused. If the Heart of Fear used its power to attack us, would we really be able to run? If we could run, wouldn't we be able to stop playing with the hand of rubbing scissors? Haha, now I get it. He's trying to tell us not to walk into the trap. So, we're just going to let this go?" Flying Horse asked. He still sounded like he was unwilling to give up. "Sigh. As a hero, you have to know how to forgive others," Feng Bujue said earnestly as if he was educating a child. "I suggest you watch Teacher Guan Dexing's Huang Feihong series more. That's called chivalry. As long as people are willing to repent and say, 'Master Huang, I know I'm wrong,' he'll let them live. I'm not wrong." Before Brother Ju could finish, the Heart of Fear interrupted. "Even if I kill all of you, it's still within the scope of my responsibility and power." Silence descended. Flying Horse and Hong Hu suddenly looked at the Heart of Fear sympathetically. What are you doing?" The Gecko brother suddenly felt a chill run down his spine. "Haha." At this moment, Feng Bujue smirked. He turned his head and stared at the Heart of Fear with an extremely cold gaze. 15 minutes later. Sigh. Nozwa no die, that's not wrong at all. Flying Horse smacked his lips and said as he chewed on the unique gecko meat. Just from the name, I thought it would be a scary and sinister creature, but it turns out to be so honest. Hong Hu also took a bite of the meat and sighed. So pitiful. You haven't even cleaned your mouth yet and you're already saying something like that. You'll lose your dignity. While Feng Bujue complained, he also stuffed a piece of juicy meat into his mouth. By then, the three had already started a fire. They sat where they were and used the Heart of Fear's carcass as a barbecue. It had indeed been 2.5 hours since they last ate. Feng Bujue believed that it was important to replenish food every 150 minutes. As long as this rhythm was not broken, the exhaustion of stamina points could be maintained at the same rate as in the normal scenario. Other than that, it was worth mentioning, before Brother Ju killed the Heart of Fear, he pretended that he did not want to give it a hard time and negotiated with it. To put it simply, he used the "you've killed one of our comrades" as a bargaining chip to negotiate with the Heart of Fear and successfully found out the way to reach the despair cage. After achieving his goal, Feng Bujue made his move. Then, it was a one-stop service of killing, slicing, and barbecuing. In any case, after sacrificing one of their comrades, they finally had some progress on the main mission. The remaining three rested for a while. After filling their stomachs with meat, they moved out again. This time, they did not have much time to rest. 1. It was because the sky was dark, and 2. Dealing with the Heart of Fear did not exhaust much of their stamina points. Feng Bujue's analysis at the sacrificial hall was correct. Of the 4 guardians, the strongest was the mimicking soul. The others were not even worth mentioning. Even though the guardians were each given a unique ability, the copying hand's territory of rock paper scissors, the mimicking soul's mimicry, and the Heart of Fear's source of tremors. Other than that, the mimicking soul's innate racial ability was undeniably the strongest. Several minutes after the three resumed their journey, Imaginative Horse suddenly screamed in shock and turned to look at Brother Ju. I almost forgot to ask, how did you survive the source of tremors? TSK. Why are you so surprised? I thought you were going to ask me something else. So, this is it. Feng Bujue said weakly. I'm curious as well. Hong Hu chimed in. When it comes to imagination and memory of various scary elements, you are at the level of a master. Even I have to admit defeat to your imagination. He paused and his expression changed slightly. You should be the one who is least likely to survive the source of tremors, right? Is that what you think? Feng Bujue replied without batting an eyelid. Hong Hu added, yes. Also, why would the Heart of Fear say you are crazy? From the conversation between the two of you in the illusion, you have communicated with it many times, right? Actually, it's not that big of a deal. Feng Bujue used a nonsensical sentence to buy himself about 2 seconds. In these 2 seconds, he came up with an explanation in his mind. The content was half true and half false. It should be able to cover up the fact that he was not afraid. Because when I see something strange, my first reaction is not to panic or be afraid, but to think about the reason. As he said that, he raised his right hand and tapped his temple with his index finger. This kind of habit is deeply ingrained. Even if the other party keeps leading me to the things that I am afraid of, as long as I can maintain my rationality and calm, I can resist it in the illusion. He paused. Let me give you a simple example. One day, you wake up to brush your teeth, turn on the faucet and realize that feces is flowing out. Do you dare to give me another example? Imaginative Horse interrupted. Okay, it's bleeding. Feng Bujue corrected himself. At this time, what will you do? Analyze the situation rationally, tell myself, I am dreaming and try to wake up. Hong Hu said as he thought. If I really can't wake up, I will use the blood to brush my teeth and pretend that it is water. After all, it is an illusion. Feng Bujue nodded with a smile but said, You are wrong. Hong Hu was startled. You are overthinking it. Feng Bujue added. If I am in that situation, my mind will make an instinctive response. What is it? Turn off the faucet. Hong Hu and imaginative horse both fell into deep thought. Chapter 583. I used this concept to survive the illusion of the source of tremors. Feng Bujue continued, this is called reverse guidance. He smiled. Perhaps the situation later became a bit out of control, which is why the heart of fear said those words. Alright, you don't have to continue. Just pretend I didn't ask. Brony turned his head away. I'm not interested anymore. Hong Hu added. He was also helpless. Every time he teamed up with Brother Ju, his sanity value for players in the tabletop game of Cthulhu Mythos, representing mental power or intelligence, would plummet. Therefore, Brother Ju once again successfully brushed the matter aside. Then, he changed the topic and led his teammates forward. This time, the players were no longer searching aimlessly. Because before the heart of fear died, it had already told them the way to enter the cage of despair. Actually, the paths in this crystal maze had a certain pattern, and this pattern was hidden in the surrounding crystal pillars. The heart of fear did not tell the players all the rules. It only told them one of them. When they encountered a fork in the path, 2 or more paths were possible. They had to stand at the center between any 2 paths and calculate the distance between the first crystal pillar on the left and the second crystal pillar on the right, as well as the angle between the line between the 2 points and the ground. If these 2 values were within a certain range, it meant that they were on the right path. Using this method, it did not matter if they were faced with 4 or 5 paths or even more. They just had to try them one by one. At that moment, Feng Bujue, Hong Hu, and Flying Pegasus followed this pattern and kept moving forward. Initially, they moved quickly and smoothly. However, after some time, the number of forks in the path increased, and the crystal pillars became more and more complicated. This caused their speed to slow down. Of course, this was normal because the closer they were to the center of the maze, the fewer paths that fit the criteria. The center of the maze was set up with many meaningless paths that were similar to a maze, and they were used to confuse outsiders. To make a long story short, this journey had taken more than 4 hours. During this time, Feng Bujue and the others stopped to eat again. They also encountered a few monsters. The battle was naturally unavoidable, and the 3 of them had all paid a certain price. Fortunately, there were no further casualties. Finally, at the 5th hour, I say, this road seems to be very long, Feng Bujue, who was walking at the front, said. Along the way, he was still the one leading the way. Leading the way in the darkness, he indeed had various advantages that others did not have. I'm starting to wonder if we're on the right path. Unrestrained Pegasus replied listlessly. Obviously, after experiencing a long journey, all kinds of frightening plots without warning, and many difficult and cumbersome battles, Brother Ma's morale had dropped to the freezing point. Could it be that the heart of fear lied to us? Hong Hu pondered for a moment and said, maybe it gave us a set of wrong theories on purpose to make us go around in circles? We're not going around in circles, Feng Bujue replied. He appeared calm and determined. Then he asked, along the way, have you seen anything repeated? In my memory, no, Hong Hu replied. Unrestrained Pegasus said, I have no recollection. Feng Bujue did not need them to have any recollection because he remembered it very clearly. I have constructed a map in my mind, and if I'm not mistaken, after we killed the Heart of Fear, the route that we've taken is generally in the shape of a spiral. He raised his hand and gestured in circles. We're approaching a central point, and we're very close. Brother Ju's words were always convincing. Even if he could not provide any evidence, with just the statement of I've drawn a map in my mind, his teammates were willing to believe him. Even Hong Hu, the strategist, had to admit that Feng Bujue had this kind of personal charm, a presence that made people feel like they could rely on him in the face of adversity. Not long after Brother Ju said that, the searchlight in his hand shone on something. There are things in this world that cannot be repeated. Hearing that, unrestrained Pegasus and Hong who both turned to look. They saw that the crystal crust on the road before them had been cut off. The three walked forward for another 10 meters and reached the end of the path. What appeared before them was a giant hole with a radius of several dozen meters. It was surrounded by tall crystal pillars, and the center was dark and bottomless. In any case, my searchlight won't be able to reach the end. As he spoke, Brother Ju raised his arm and punched the crystal pillar next to him. The next second, he picked up a crystal shard that was knocked down and tossed it into the hole. That was the sound of the crystal falling. And then, there was no then. Wow. It's a bottomless hole. Unrestrained Pegasus leaned over with his hands on his knees and looked down. Yes, Madame de Yong, the golden-nosed, white-haired rat from Journey to the West, lives down there, Brother Ju mocked. Even I am getting restless. Phew, what kind of duku is this? Ambitionist's lips twitched. Let me tell you, now that Atobi is dead, we might not know what kind of joke you're playing. If you continue to do this, we'll just assume that you're the only one who's lost his mind. So be it. Feng Bujue shrugged. In any case, I'll go down first. Then, he took several steps back and prepared to run. Current quest completed. Main quest updated. At that moment, 2 consecutive system announcements interrupted Brother Ju's action. The players opened the game menu to check the quest tab. They saw that the quest "Reach the Despair Cage" had been ticked off. The new quest was "Find the way to open the cage." What's going on? Unrestrained Pegasus asked. This is a hole, and there's no lid. How do we open it? Perhaps the despair cage is not the hole itself but somewhere inside the hole, Hong Hu hypothesized. Feng Bujue said, All right, I'll go down and take a look. There's no need for that. Suddenly, an unfamiliar voice spoke. At the same time, a hand landed on Feng Bujue's shoulder. I'll help you open it, travelers from another dimension, the person said as his body slowly appeared from the darkness. Chapter 584. The despair cage was located at the bottom of the giant pit in the center of the crystal maze. It was a special space between the Devil Maze Island's main island and the Devil Maze Island. The time in the main island and the Devil Maze Island was reversed. However, in this space, the positive and negative coexisted. For example, at this moment, standing at the bottom of the pit and looking up, one could see the sky above the main island. There was a blood moon in the sky that was intertwined with the purple mist. As for the surrounding crystal pillars, they were faintly glowing. They were not completely pitch black. Bang bang bang. Suddenly, the sound of Jeppo piercing through the air came from above. A strong red shadow swept through the air like a gust of wind and rushed down at high speed. A few seconds later, the shadow landed on the ground and shattered a large piece of crystal. At this moment, Feng Bujue was covered in blood. His eyes were as cold as winter. You escaped really quickly. Not long after, another tall figure slowly floated down from the sky. The person who had arrived was none other than the torturer. At this moment, Xingshir's right hand was grabbing Hong Hu's hair and holding him in his hand. Hong Hu was not dead yet. However, he had lost the ability to resist. He could not even reach for the medicine in his backpack. As for the flying steed, he did not survive. Or should I say, your reaction is fast enough, Xingshi said as he stopped 3 meters above the ground. With a casual toss, he threw the dying Hong Hu onto the ground. Facing my surprise attack, you were able to dodge it with such extreme movements. This is beyond my expectations. There appears to be a gap between your style and your ability, Feng Bujue replied coldly and used the corner of his eyes to glance at Ambitionist on the ground. Brother Ju did not rush forward to save Hong Hu. He knew that Xing Shi had thrown Hong Hu down to lure him over. What? Are you trying to say that I'm despicable? Xing Shi laughed coldly. Haha, what a joke. Who said that the strong cannot ambush? That makes sense. Feng Bujue agreed. You better remember this. Crazy, no sleep. Suddenly, another roar came from behind Brother Ju. The familiar voice was filled with infinite anger and hatred. Feng Bujue immediately retreated a few steps to the side and glanced at the source of the sound from the corner of his eyes. In a strange shadow, he saw a huge crystal cage. This cage looked like a flat and round rattan ball. It was made of crystal and completely hollow, and in the cage there was a monster with horns on its head. Samantir? Feng Bujue asked tentatively. Before he could finish, Sam Montier had already jumped up and rushed to the side of the cage. He stretched an arm out of the cage and waved his claws at Brother Ju. I've been waiting for this day for a long time. Don't even think about running away. This is interesting. Xing Shi floated in the air and looked at them like he was enjoying a show. Could it be? He turned to Brother Ju. You are Feng Bujue? Yes, I haven't asked who you are. Feng Bujue replied without batting an eyelid. Xing Shi. Xing Shi touched the beard under his nose and said in a proud tone, I am the main designer of Devil's Maw Island and also the maintenance staff. He smiled. How is it? My work left a deep impression on you, didn't it? Humph. Feng Bujue scoffed condescendingly. Trying to show off in front of me, an artist. He put his hands in his pockets and took 2 steps forward. Ever since I was 8, I've been working hard to train myself. The only skill that I'm proud of is my creativity. From how I see it, this island that you've designed is like a tomb for imagination. Brother Ju looked at Xing Shi with a taunting gaze and continued. To make the living creatures who wish to hear about their crimes unable to hear about their crimes, to turn the living creatures who wish for immortality into immortal wood, to drown the living creatures who desire beauty and purity into a dirty swamp. This kind of trick, is the design of a self-righteous sadist. He scratched his chin. Also, those boring creatures are nothing more than the mutated form of plants and animals. Can't you come up with a better idea? You be ****. The fire in Xing Shi's heart grew, and anger was written all over his face. Feng Bujue's few sentences had successfully touched his bottom line. Even though I haven't met the other prisoners on the island, I have a general idea of what's going on. Brother Ju's mockery was far from over, it was just the beginning. What kind of stupid idea can you come up with? Lock up a big guy who will keep growing in a small room? Make sure that a person who loves sweet stuff can only have mayonnaise every day? He used his finger to tap his forehead lightly. From how I see it, with your talent, to create something that will leave a lasting impression on others, there is only one way, and that is to perform a lobotomy on yourself. Who do you think you are? Xing Shi roared angrily. Ignorant human, you have no right to judge me. Don't talk to me about qualifications. Feng Bujue cut him off loudly. Even in this universe, I've met people who are more brilliant than you. I wonder if you know a puppet by the name of Billy. He is at least 100 times better than you. What did you say? Xing Shi's teeth were about to shatter from gritting. He was so angry that he spat out those words one by one. Ha 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 ha! A burst of laughter came from the other side. It was Sam Montier who was laughing in the cage. Feng Bujue, in the whole universe, there is probably no one who is more talented at taunting than you. Ha ha ha, what's wrong? Brother Ju was as calm as ever. He caught something from the reaction of the 2 people. For the sake of smoothness, we'll call them humans for now. Between Torture Master and Billy, is there some kind of hidden past? Ha ha. There is nothing to hide. Sam Montier laughed from inside the cage. It is just something that many people know. Shut up, Sam Montier. Sam Montier! The torturer shouted at the cage. Humph! Don't make a fuss, you be **starred. Sam Montier scoffed. This cage of despair is not your work. It is the creation of the master of time. You are just the key. He leaned his face close to the cage, and a vicious glint appeared in his yellowish eyes. You think you have the right to order me around? Xing Shi's face was twisted with shame and anger, but he could not do anything, because he knew that Sam Montier was about to escape from the cage. Ha! Ha ha ha! Suddenly, Xing Shi laughed. It was not a laugh from anger but a sinister laugh. As a prisoner, your personality has not changed at all, he said as he descended from the sky. And you? He turned to Brother Ju. A mere human dares to speak so arrogantly before me. Xing Shi stood still and shrugged. Fine. No matter what you think of me today, I am just a spectator. He raised his hand and pointed at Feng Bujue. Feng Bujue, aren't you and your partner looking for a way to open the cage of despair? Ha ha. He laughed again. I have already helped you open it. Brother Ju's expression shifted when he heard that. Xing Shi continued, the blood on your body, which is the blood of that kid wearing the saint robe, is the key to opening the cage. Crack. Before he could finish his sentence, a very bad sound came from Sam Montier's cage. It sounded like something hard had cracked open. He is a believer of the God of Truth, Turex, right? Xing Shi continued. Ha ha. When his blood dripped into this space, the seal was broken. Crack. Crack. After the first sound, it was a chain reaction. Several seconds later, the crystal cage that trapped Sam Montier crumbled and fell to the ground. Obviously, after the seal was loosened, this was just a normal cage. Sam Montier's earlier ramming was enough to cause cracks to appear in the cage. Current quest completed. Main quest updated. Current quest completed. Main quest updated. This continuous and repeated announcement meant that Brother Ju had completed 2 quests at the same time. When he opened up the mission panel, he saw that other than find a way to open the cage, there was also a new mission, remove the seal on the despair cage. The latter mission was considered completed as soon as it was refreshed. Tisk! Feng Bujue scoffed. This quest is surprisingly easy. Actually, it was not easy at all. If everything was normal, there was still 1/3 of the quest to complete. Furthermore, the way to break the seal would be different. First, the players had to find the hint about the seal in this space. Then, they had to find a mechanism to return to the main island of Devil's Chomp Island. Then, they had to find a few items and ask an NPC about the 2 ways to leave Devil's Chomp Island. This could be skipped because Brother Ju had already heard about it from Fu Ling. Finally, they had to return here to open the cage of despair. However, due to Billy's intervention, Xing Shi's appearance disrupted the original plot. Ha ha! Ha 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 ha! Xing Shi guffawed like a madman. You two have a grudge against each other, but you have a grudge against each other. There is no need to thank me. Ha 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 ha! You let go of such an important criminal without permission. Aren't you afraid that the Master of Time will hold you responsible? Feng Bujue looked at him and said, You don't need to worry about me. You should worry about yourself first. Ha ha! Xing Shi laughed. Human, I would like to see how long you can maintain that arrogant attitude of yours. Bang, bang. While they were talking, Sam Montier had already stepped out of the cage. His giant hooves stomped noisily on the surface of the crystal. A pair of bat wings extended behind him, creating a gust of wind. At that moment, the new quest in Brother Ju's quest tab perfectly explained the severity of the situation. Chapter 585. You are crazy. Sam Montier glared at Brother Ju as he walked closer. You don't have to call my name again and again, Feng Bujue replied impatiently. I'm not deaf. When Sam Montier heard that, he really stopped yelling. He waved his arm, and a black energy slash flew toward Brother Ju. Ring, ring, ring. A series of sounds announced that the crystal on the ground had been easily torn apart by the slash. Feng Bujue had already gotten into the rhythm of the battle. With his soul's eye and absolute speed, it was not hard for him to dodge this attack. But what he needed to do was not just dodge. Chi chi chi. Golden light flashed and a series of attacks appeared. When Sam Montier made his move, Death Poker also made his move. Earlier, when Feng Bujue had his hands in his pockets, he had secretly taken out his sorcery weapon from his pocket, so he appeared to be at ease. But the target of the Death Poker was not Sam Montier, but, you're just playing tricks. Punisher looked at the golden light flying towards his face and sneered. Humans are humans. What can an attack of this level do to me? He raised his hand and easily deflected the Death Poker. Your aim is quite accurate. You even know to aim for my eyes. Bang! Jeppo broke through the air and shot forward. Feng Bujue's attack was not over yet. Just as Punisher blocked the Death Poker, he was already in front of him. He reached out his arms and aimed for Punisher's ribs. Do you have a death wish? Punisher looked at Brother Ju with condescension. From his perspective, this traveler from another world was either an idiot or a madman. With the power of a human, he wanted to fight him barehanded. That was suicidal. But when Brother Ju's hands touched Punisher's body, something unexpected happened in the next second. Xing Shi felt the scenery in front of him change. In a flash, he was right next to Sam Montier. While he was still in shock, Sam Montier's voice rang out in his ears. Go to hell. Punisher. Ah! The Punisher was shocked, but he immediately reacted instinctively. He took a step forward and shot into the sky like a cannonball. The Punisher was still wary of Sam Montier's strength. To be honest, he did not have the confidence to take a direct hit, so his first reaction was to dodge. However, the Punisher who was in midair felt that something was amiss. Oh no! When he calmed down and looked at the bottom of the pit again, he realized that he had fallen into a trap. At this time, Feng Bujue had already arrived beside Hong Hu. He fed him an SCP-500 and a bottle of life points recovery potion. Phew, not a bad tactic. Hong Hu stood up and entered combat mode. He did not thank Brother Ju but commented on the man's series of actions. It's okay. Actually, it's not a particularly clever tactic, Feng Bujue said as he raised his eyes to look at Punisher in the sky. Thankfully, the target is stupid enough. His words were clearly said to infuriate the torture master. In reality, Brother Ju's tactic was quite clever. When he was conversing with the torturer, he had already thought of every step of the plan. First, he prepared Death Poker in secret. Then, he used the Death Poker to ambush the Punisher's eyes and create an opening for him to close in on him. When he got close enough, he used Sandstorm Transit to drag him to Sam Montier's side. Lastly, before the Punisher could react, he ran towards his teammates and used Deceit Pocket Watch to imitate Sam Montier's voice. Based on Punisher's attitude towards Sam Montier and some minor reactions, Feng Bujue predicted that Punisher was weaker than Sam Montier. Therefore, he came up with this plan in a matter of seconds, using Punisher's hesitation and shock after being dragged by the skill. Brother Ju used a voice-changing device to fool the man. No matter how fast Punisher reacted, it was a fact that he had been dragged several meters away by Feng Bujue. Even if it only took him 2 seconds to realize that he had been tricked, Feng Bujue had rushed toward Hong Hu 2 seconds before him. The worst-case scenario was that Brother Ju would not be able to put the potion into Hong Hu's mouth in time and would have to carry Hong Hu and run. But now that was the best outcome. You cunning bee starred. Punisher cursed in midair. Then he lowered his head to look at Sam Montier and yelled, Sam Montier, isn't he your enemy? What are you waiting for? Kill him now. Don't give me orders. Sam Montier roared at the sky and then turned to look at Brother Jew. Even if you don't tell me that, I will tear him into pieces. Then, his demon hoof slowly stepped forward. Bang, bang, the ferocious demon spread its wings and clawed at the two players with a murderous look on its face. Today, the Master of Time will not come to save you, he said as he walked. I told you. I will make you pay. Hong Hu. Feng Bujue stared at the approaching Sam Montier and said in a ventriloquist voice, I have an idea, what is it? Hong Hu lowered his voice to reply. Run, Feng Bujue said. Good idea, Hong Hu replied immediately. It was indeed a good idea because it did not conflict with the main quest. Okay, I will create an opening. You run when the time is right, Feng Bujue said. Understood, Hong Hu replied. After the discussion with his teammates, Brother Ju started to move. He took out something from his pocket, raised his arm and threw it forward. He even shouted, I've decided on you. The god of haiku. What kind of name is that? Hong Hu could not help but mock. However, his mockery would not affect the development of the plan. The pokeball flew in the air and opened with a ping sound. Immediately after, a white light shot out from it. In 2 seconds, the large pool of white light took shape and materialized into a gigantic mushroom man. Cha! Cha! The mushroom man screamed as soon as it appeared. Facing Sam Montier, who was several meters away, it was not afraid at all. It assumed a karate stance and prepared to attack. The god of haiku. Use 9th snow dance. Feng Bujue waved his arm and gave the order to attack. Hey! Where did you learn the name of this skill? Hong Hu could not help but roar again. On the other side, before Brother Ju finished, the mushroom man had already charged forward. It used a sprint to get close to Sam Montier. Then it jumped up and landed on top of Sam Montier. Cha! The mushroom man landed on Sam Montier's head with one hand, keeping himself upside down. Then, he used his other hand to rub the mushroom cap on his head, sprinkling a fine powder that looked like spores. Sam Montier, one of the most powerful bosses in the main universe, was poisoned. How dare you! The blood vessels on Sam Montier's forehead burst. Purple liquid gushed out and splattered all over his face. In his fury, the energy in his body leaked out like a broken dam, spreading in all directions. Cha! The mushroom man screamed in pain and was reduced to dust by the black stream. Seeing this, Feng Bujue knew that the time had come. Instantly, he barked at Ambitionist, now is the time. Before he finished, he had already started to run. Hong Hu was not going to be polite. He turned around and ran. The two of them were like arrows released from a bow. In the blink of an eye, they were dozens of meters away. Punisher, who was in the air, wanted to stop them, but he was blocked by Sam Montier's energy and was unable to catch up. Sam Montier howled like a madman for about 10 seconds before he pulled back his mana. Feng Bujue, where are you? I will kill you. Idiot! He's already escaped. Punisher rushed in the direction that the two players had escaped. Without turning back, he yelled, Quick, follow me! I can detect their At that moment, a sharp claw pierced through Punisher's back and gripped his heart. You! Punisher's eyes widened, and disbelief was written all over his face. Who are you calling an idiot? Idiot! Sam Montier's chilling voice echoed in his ears. Why? Black blood leaked out from Punisher's mouth. Of course, it's not because you called me an idiot. Ha ha ha! Sam Montier laughed coldly. Sam Montier was like a completely different person from before. His madness, recklessness, and violence were all an illusion. His eyes had never been blinded by hatred and anger. He was born into an evil race, but he managed to climb up the ranks step by step. His intelligence and shrewdness were undeniable. Those who underestimated that would have to pay the price. Billy asked me to say hello. The latter half of Sam Montier's sentence was like a bucket of cold water poured over Punisher's head. It chilled him to the bone. I am indeed here to visit you. After all, you don't have much time left. That be asterisk starred. Punisher gritted his teeth. Is he here to see me one last time? Haha. It's good that you understand. Sam Montier smiled. Everything on Devil's Maw Island is a trade. Don't blame me. I merely made a trade with him. No, that's not right. Then why did he come to warn me? Punisher asked again. Because he knows very well. Sam Montier continued, how to get a smart guy like you to take the bait. Sam Montier paused for 2 seconds before he continued in a mocking tone. Billy only gave you a hint and you were already restless. A silkworm queen's carcass caused your imagination to run wild. So, after he left, you couldn't wait to come to the maze realm to investigate. Then, you discovered the culprit behind all this, the travelers from the other dimension. How did you know? Punisher struggled to finish the sentence. Ha! Isn't it obvious? Sam Montier replied darkly. Do you think the seal on the cage has just been loosened? That's impossible. Punisher's expression changed. Billy didn't. No, he is very powerful, Sam Montier said. Even though I was shocked, the reality is that he is now even more powerful than I am. He paused. Of course, that's not the main point. Anyway, when Billy made the trade with me, I was already free. My power was no longer restricted by the cage. Since then, I have been able to investigate everything on the island. And the things that you have done, I have seen them all with my own eyes. Sam Montier chuckled coldly and continued. No matter how much you like to say whatever, in essence, you are still a scoundrel who plans everything carefully. Punisher, you have never had the courage to challenge the strong. Even when facing the weak, you like to use sneak attacks or sneak attack. You are like all the sadistic people in this world. Everything that you show and do is just to cover up the inferiority and weakness in your heart. Compared to you, even the most despicable maggots are incomparably noble. You really make me want to vomit. At this point, Sam Montier's claws tightened. Speaking of which, it is not easy to make someone like you reveal your weakness. He stretched his neck and said, I've been acting very hard, but you haven't let your guard down at all. Humph. If it weren't for the fact that you have the key to seal me back into the cage, I would have done it already. There's no need for me to wait for such an opportunity. At this moment, Punisher was unable to open his mouth to reply. His eyes were filled with despair and regret, and Billy's words kept flashing before his eyes. Do not believe what you see on the surface so easily. Thankfully, Sam Montier continued. Fong Bujue's performance did not disappoint me. He is such an annoying person, isn't he? Heh. With his cooperation, my performance also seems more natural. At this point, his tone changed. But, other than that, in terms of power, the current Fong Bujue is already a very powerful character. You should have noticed that when you ambushed him from above, right? He is not on the same level as the other 2 travelers from another world. I have to admit, your decision to use me to kill him was a very correct one. He turned around to glare at Punisher. If you had killed that guy called Hong Hu and left Fong Bujue alone, you would have been in danger. He lowered his voice. Without a witness, the kid would not have needed to hide his power anymore. I'm afraid you would have died in his hands. Do not underestimate that person who is better at making people hate him than you are. After a few minutes, the torturer's life had come to an end. Sam Montier's words made it clear to him that he was dying. In the end, Xing Shi mustered all his strength and muttered, "The Master of Time won't let you go, ha." Sam Montier laughed condescendingly. That does sound like the last words of someone like you, Chi. The claws tightened and the heart exploded. Black blood splattered everywhere. Sam Montier tossed Punisher's body to the ground like a piece of trash. Then he raised his leg and stomped on the man's head, then his chest, stomach, and limbs. When there was only a puddle of meat on the ground, Sam Montier found what he was looking for. He bent down and used his sharp claws to pick up the torturer's spine. He then carefully pulled out a belt of light that emitted a purple glow from within. There are already so many prisoners on the island. Sam Montier picked up the purple band of light, which was similar to the keys of the island manager. Ha ha! If I let all of you out, it will be very interesting, won't it? Sam Montier put the band of light away and raised his head to look in the direction that the two players had escaped. So that's how it is. The kid has already made a deal with Fu Ling. He scoffed. Humph. He has already prepared an escape route, and he is invincible from the beginning. He shook his head. Fine, I'll let you go this time. After all, before the Master of Time discovers the situation here, I still have many things to do. After muttering a few words, he unfolded the giant wings behind him, gathered the demon chi in his chest, and flew into the sky, at the same time on the other side of the main universe, inside the first magistrate's office in Chronograph City. 3 more steps and you'll be a general. The man who spoke had a rock-like voice, and he looked about the same. He was about 2-3 meters tall, and his body was made from different colored marble. He looked like a muscular human being. The strange thing was that he had hair. Of course, his hair was not moss or anything like that. Instead, it was something like battlements. They grew around the top of his head like a crown. This stone man was the first magistrate under the Master of Time, Tianshi. Hey! Don't rush me. Did I rush you? The person who spoke to him was a very ordinary-looking old man. He was wearing the white robe of a wizard from Middle-earth, and he had the hairstyle of an old shaman. He was the god of wisdom, Wisten. Heaven Stone and Wisten would often get together to play chess, a game similar to chess, but the chess pieces were all strange things that only existed in the main universe. Ironically, the guy known as the God of Wisdom always lost more than he won. An hour ago, we had the same conversation. Do you still remember? Tianshi asked again. Stop talking nonsense. Do you think I have Alzheimer's? Wisten roared and continued to scratch his head at the chessboard. Sigh. Tianshi held his chin and turned his head to the side. If you don't mind, can I leave for a while? Sure, Wisten replied impatiently. Tianshi shrugged and walked to the corner of the room. He picked up a kettle and poured himself a drink, gulping it down. Suddenly, he saw something from the corner of his eyes. In the next second, Tianshi's expression changed, and he spat out the thing in his mouth. Ah! He roared, scaring Wisten, who was beside the chessboard. What happened? What happened? Wisten looked around nervously. The leader of the demons is attacking? Something happened on Devil Chomp Island, Tianshi said as he ran out the door. Wisten was stunned for a few seconds, then he stood up and walked to where Tianshi had been standing. There was a shelf on the wall, and there was an object that looked like a crystal ball on the shelf. The shape of the crystal ball was very strange. It looked like a white eyeball, and in the middle of the ball there was a thin amber line. Chapter 586. The scenario has been completed. Calculating reward. Obtained EXP 150,000. Game coins 100000. Acquired equipment. Chuck Norris's Razor missions completed. 99/99. Completed special and hidden missions. 1. Unlocked world building. None time of terror points increase. 0. Highest terror points, 0%. Average terror points, 0%. Your terror rating is embodiment of valor. Extra reward obtained. Please choose later. Obtain skill points, 1/414. Additional bonus skill points. EXP, 14140. Game coins, 100000. Inch scenario cleared reward. Puzzle Card X3 Side Quest Reward. Puzzle Card X1 Calculation complete. Please continue. After returning to the login lobby, Fong Bujue clicked on the touchscreen to check the result. This was the first time he had cleared a Nightmare Mode team scenario, and from the result, the reward was quite good. There were two reasons for the high EXP reward. 1. It had taken them a long time to clear the scenario, and 2. It was because they had completed many side quests. The 9 main quests were: search for Devil's Maw Island and enter the Temple of Faith within 3 hours. Players who fail to do so will be killed. Reach the altar at the bottom of the Temple of Faith within 3 hours. Players who fail to do so will be killed. Use the altar at the Temple of Worship within 15 minutes to summon and defeat the God of Wandering, Walker. Pass through the corridor behind the altar within 1 hour to reach the Crystal Maze. Arrive at the Cage of Despair. Find a way to open the cage. Remove the seal on the Cage of Despair. Survive, and escape from Devil's Maw Island. Even though there were some changes due to Billy's interference, overall, the scenario's death rate and difficulty were still increasing. Of the 2 side quests, describe 7 crimes to satisfy hunger, resend and reach the Silkworm Mother's nest and rescue Uncle Worthless before he dies, or leaves the scenario due to other reasons. They had only completed one of them, which resulted in the lack of a direct reward. That was quite regrettable. I've gotten so many puzzle cards in one go. Fong Bujua looked at the screen and mumbled. The reason all the rewards are given to the puzzle cards is to allow the players to familiarize themselves with the new puzzle card trading house as soon as possible. At this point, he took out the electric razor from his inventory and held it before his eyes to study it. Other than the puzzle cards, the most valuable thing that I've gotten this time is this thing. Brother Ju carefully read the description of the item again, but he still did not understand what it was for. What kind of special effect is give you a cool appearance? Could it be that this is a prank with the label legendary? Beep beep. The communication request that popped up on the screen interrupted Brother Ju's train of thought. Fong Bujua looked at it. It was a communication request for multiple people. Hong Hu, Uncle Worthless, and Flying Horse were all in the channel. They had probably finished reading the scenario and wanted to communicate with each other. After 2 seconds of hesitation, Brother Ju accepted the request and entered the channel. Once the call connected, he heard Uncle Worthless' voice. I just finished a round of the killing game. When I saw the EXP I got, I knew you guys had cleared the scenario. My death was so unjust. That B** starred was so powerful, but he ambushed me. Speaking of which, you guys have helped me take revenge, right? Flying Horse's voice continued. Hong Hu's voice replied, I'm sorry, but we retreated. After you died, other than the boss who ambushed you, Sam Montier soon appeared. He was the one who had a grudge with Brother Fong. Under those circumstances, it was unrealistic to fight the 2 monsters in a 2v2 situation, so we escaped through the small path at the bottom of the pit. He paused. Who would have thought that after running for a while, the mission Survive would suddenly be completed? Then, the mission Escape from Devil's Chomp Island appeared. Then how did you guys escape from the island? Uncle Worthless asked. The way to leave Devil's Maw Island. Fong Bujua said. There are 2 ways. He smiled. Of course, death does not count. That cannot be considered leaving. Then, what are the 2 ways? Brother Ma asked. The first way, to put it bluntly, is to use brute force, using magic, power, or physical means to leave. Fong Bujua answered. This method is naturally difficult for us to do, but among the prisoners on the island, there are quite a few who can do it. However, the prisoners on Devil's Chomp Island are all suppressed by a bunch of keys. Without the keys, even if they can move freely on the island, they will not be able to leave the island. Brother Ju paused for a few seconds before continuing. And the second method is a trade. As I said, many of the prisoners on the island have the ability to leave the island, but they are suppressed by the keys. However, even if they cannot leave, it does not mean that they cannot send others away. Oh, I get it now. Uncle Worthless understood. When we were at the Ghost Swamp, you already found out the method to leave the island from Fu Ling and made a trade with her. Humph. You already came up with this plan, but you did not even mention it to us. Hong Hu suddenly added coldly. Actually, before leaving the scenario, he was already dissatisfied with this trick that his brother Ju had left behind, but he did not have the time to bring it up. There is no point in bringing it up, Feng Bujue said. It was me who made the trade with Fu Ling, not our team. So be it. After all, we have already cleared the scenario, Hong Hu said. By the way, Atobi should be fine, right? Imaginative Horse seemed to be reminded of something and added, after I left the scenario, I realized that he has been offline. Of course, he is fine. Feng Bujue added. He is so young. Do you think he would be scared to death? He shrugged. He was probably restricted from logging in. The game manual states that it is a protection mechanism for players who are scared offline. He probably will not log in again tonight. Oh, I see. Brother Ju was obviously the kind of person who did not know how to study the game manual. Then, the four of them talked about the details of the script and discussed some problems with the plot. After chatting for more than 10 minutes, they dispersed. Before the chat ended, Feng Bujue added them as friends. After Hong Hu said, "We'd better stay away from each other," they removed the friend list. After exiting the nightmare scenario, Brother Ju was indeed quite tired, but he still planned to deal with some things before going offline. He was not in a hurry to claim the reward but went to the market to do some simple business. After arriving at Area 101, Feng Bujue headed straight for the supply store. He took out the elf, demigod, meat, goat, might have wolf blood, meat, and lizard, heart of fear, meat from his inventory and sold them to the store. These items were all normal, so they were not listed in the reward system. However, when they were sold at the store, they were surprisingly expensive. This was especially true for the meat from the god of wandering, Walker, which was sold for several thousand game coins. Brother Ju could use this money to buy life points, recovery potions, and ammo. Under the curious gazes of the surrounding players, Feng Bujue completed this bloody transaction and ran back to the login lobby. Then, it was time to draw the loot. Brother Ju quickly claimed the 4 puzzle cards. After looking at the content of the cards, he placed puzzle card, ping pong, puzzle card, father, puzzle card, spider, and puzzle card, countdown into the box in the storage room. Then, he came to the remaining glass pillar. Please select your additional reward. 1. Randomly draw a piece of equipment corresponding to your level. After the update, there is a chance of getting a random tool or other item. 2. 50,000 game coins. 3. 17,200,000 EXP. The EXP reward was 10 times more than the Team Nightmare scenario, but Brother Ju naturally ignored it. Before the system finished reading out the prompts, he decisively chose the first option. The white light reappeared and it slowly took shape. This time, the equipment looked very small, like something that could be held in one hand. When the light faded, Feng Bujue focused his eyes, and what appeared before him was a pipe. Item name: Oxygen pipe. Item type: Other quality. Excellent special effect. When inhaling, you will obtain a small amount of oxygen. Equip requirement: None, bound after one use. Remark: There is no need to light it, no need to smoke it, just put it in your mouth. When you smoke it, it will emit smoke, but only pure oxygen will enter your lungs. Feng Bujue held the wooden pipe in front of his eyes and studied it closely. It was brown in color, and the surface was very smooth. There were no cracks or imperfections. The handle was darker in color, and there was a line of words carved on it: "Smoking is harmful to your health." Ah, this is not bad. Feng Bujue mumbled to himself as he put the pipe in his mouth, and took a few puffs. He did not light it, nor did he put any tobacco in it, but wisps of white smoke drifted out from the pipe, and the smoke had a strong fragrance. "This is good stuff." Fong Bujue took the pipe out from his mouth and said, "With this, I can survive in a low-oxygen environment for a long time." He had just obtained this item, and he was already thinking about it. "In future killing games, if the environment permits, I can consider dragging the opponent to the bottom of the sea or high up in the sky for a battle of attrition. Haha, that should be very interesting." Since it was something with practical value, Brother Ju naturally would not destroy it. He took the opportunity to put it into his inventory. Finally, he checked his overall condition again. He opened the menu and clicked the option to go offline. Chapter 587. Under the night sky, S-City was like a mysterious lady. Her charming smile made your heart beat faster, and her enchanting figure made your imagination run wild. Countless people fell into the abyss of desire just by looking at her, but she was just an illusion, a fantasy. You could feel her beside you, but you could never hold her in your arms. June 6, 9:00 p.m. The hustle and bustle of the day fermented in the night sky, turning into a life of debauchery and debauchery. At night, in front of a luxurious restaurant in the city center of S-City, more than 30 young people walked out of the restaurant. It was the beginning of summer, and they were still dressed in formal attire. Regardless of gender, they were all wearing luxury brands from head to toe. Among them, there was one person who was particularly eye-catching. First of all, she was a beauty, an indisputable beauty. It was not an exaggeration to say that her beauty was like a lotus flower shaming the jade. But this was not the reason why she was eye-catching, because there was no lack of beauties in this group. There were many women around her, and their looks and temperaments were quite bright and eye-catching. The reason why she stood out was because she was wearing an extremely ordinary black long-sleeve t-shirt and jeans. Her hair was casually tied behind her head, and she basically did not put on much makeup. For someone who came to attend a class reunion, this dressing was a bit too casual, as everyone knew you could dress casually in any kind of occasion, except for this occasion. You could only look casual on the surface, but you had to take it seriously in your heart. After all, no one wanted their old classmates to think that they were not doing well. This was human nature. But Li Ruoyu, this weirdo, she was really perfunctory and casual in her opinion. Whether it was branded or cheap, it did not mean anything at all, because she was very clear that the people who came to this gathering were not doing badly. Haha, look at you guys, your alcohol tolerance is so bad. Who's bad? Let's continue at the KTV later. Okay, who's afraid of who? As long as you don't use your broken voice to attract the security. TSK, a broken voice queen like you still has the nerve to talk about me. Hey, don't fight with me later. No matter what, I should be paying for the KTV, right? Don't be polite with me, just drink as much as you want. After eating and drinking to their heart's content, the group seemed a little tipsy. They chatted and laughed in high spirit. Only Li Ruoyu stood at the side silently. No one took the initiative to strike up a conversation with her. Ruoyu. Suddenly, someone called out to her. To Li Ruoyu's classmates, this voice was very unfamiliar. Many people turned their heads, wanting to see which male compatriot dared to take the initiative to talk to the female killer, nickname. In the end, they saw a stranger. It was a young man who looked to be around 24 or 25 years old. Although he couldn't be considered elegant, he could be considered valiant and handsome. The trace of unruly evil aura between his brows was a unique temperament that others could not imitate. You? Why are you here? When Li Ruoyu first saw Fong Bujue, she really didn't react. Today's Brother Ju was very different from usual. She didn't know where he got a branded suit from, nor did she know where he got a pair of branded leather shoes from, nor did she know where he got a Bugatti parked behind him. She didn't know what was wrong with him, but he actually washed himself clean and combed his hair. Hey, I'm here to pick you up. Feng Bujue showed a gentle smile. Didn't you say that we might drink today? I calculated the time and drove here to wait for you. Oh, the classmates quickly showed an "I understand" expression. I didn't expect the female killer to have a boyfriend. That's something worth celebrating. Relatively speaking, that guy is really inspiring. Hey, Leroy Yu's boyfriend is quite handsome. What? You want to steal his girlfriend? Did you see what kind of car he's driving? TSK. I'm just saying, I can tell that they're rich second generations. They're well matched. Why would I want to join in the fun? Indifference, disregard, ridicule, disdain, envy, jealousy, all kinds of emotions spread in the crowd, but no one was truly happy for Leroy Yu. It had to be said, her popularity was really bad. Before Brother Ju finished speaking, Leroy Yu quickly understood the situation in front of her. She sighed and turned to the classmates beside her. Today, I'll go back first. Oh, go, we all understand. A few of the more lively female classmates quickly responded. They were the organizers of this gathering, and they were also the ones who had done well in the past year after graduation. When they heard that Leroy Yu was going to leave, they naturally couldn't ask for anything more. In fact, halfway through the meal, they felt that they shouldn't have invited Leroy Yu. They felt that she was an extra person. She sat at the side drinking by herself and didn't say a word. They didn't know if they should say that she was pitiful or sad. When the few girls spoke, the few classmates standing close to them also echoed. Thus, Leroy Yu politely nodded and said goodbye to everyone. Then, she turned around and immediately put on a "you owe me a lot of money" face and looked at Brother Ju. She approached step by step, but Feng Bujue wasn't nervous at all. He still stood there elegantly with a smile on his face. Several seconds later, Leroy Yu very naturally hooked her arm around Brother Ju's arm and then dragged him away with a tug. Not long after, the two got into the sports car. Feng Bujue started the engine and drove away. The Bugatti's taillights quickly disappeared into the street. Why don't you explain? Leroy Yu sat in the front passenger seat and asked before she even fastened her seatbelt. Well, your cousin called me and said that you were going to attend the graduation anniversary party today. Feng Bujue replied. She also said the restaurant's address and the time of the meal, and then she hung up. Why did she tell you that? Leroy Yu asked again. Maybe she foresaw that you would definitely be in an awkward situation like just now. Feng Bujue laughed. So she gave me a hint and asked me to help you out. Who's awkward? Leroy Yu whispered. I'm fine, what's fine? Feng Bujue sighed. Even I, an outsider, want to cry when I see you. You look out of place from head to toe. Did he drink alone when he was having dinner? Don't you know that it's hard to drink alone? It's none of your business. Leroy Yu's tone suddenly turned cold. You're angry, right? Okay. Feng Bujue didn't seem to care. Come at me, it's fine. I have a big heart and strong wrists. At this time, Leroy Yu's face was red. It wasn't clear if she was really drunk or just angry. After a short silence, she suddenly said, Do you like me? Brother Ju was shocked. He turned his head to glance at Leroy Yu. You sure know how to jump from place to place. Sorry, I'm quite slow when it comes to this. If you do, please tell me as soon as possible so that I can sort out my thoughts, Leroy Yu replied. Well, Brother Ju thought for a few seconds and gave a shocking answer, not necessarily. Oh. Leroy Yu actually agreed casually. Silence fell again. However, the conversation between the two gods wasn't over yet. Feng Bujue did not expect that a question like that could be brushed aside so easily, but since it had already been brushed aside, he might as well change the topic. By the way, aren't you going to ask about my outfit? You borrowed it from Xiao Tan. Leroy Yu interrupted. He even lent you a Bugatti, so a designer suit is just a matter of convenience, tisk? So you saw through it instantly. Feng Bujue muttered. Actually, you don't have to do this. Ruoyu said in a low voice. I don't care what those people think of me. In the future, I won't attend such gatherings anymore. Sigh. I don't want to be like this either. Feng Bujue sighed helplessly. Unfortunately, the world is generally like this. It's us. Ruoyu turned to look at Brother Ju and continued. Isn't it strange? Haha. Yeah. Feng Bujue looked back at her and smiled meaningfully. But actually, I think this is pretty good. Chapter 588. On the 8th of June, on a Sunday afternoon, inside the recording studio of a TV station's variety show, Feng Bujue sat inside a resting room, waiting for the recording of I Am a Writer revival contest to start. A few minutes earlier, the makeup artist from the show had come in to fix his appearance and hair before leaving. Now, there was only one cameraman left in the room. Due to the need of the recording, unless Brother Ju went to the toilet, the cameraman had to follow him. This was also a relatively popular filming method nowadays, combining variety shows and reality shows to create a sense of reality by recording the contrast between on and off stage. But in reality, it was not to be taken too seriously. Things that should be cut would be cut during editing. Dong dong. Suddenly, there was a knock on the door. Come in, Feng Bujue answered casually. It was impossible for him to stop someone from entering because the door was not locked. Hey Bujue, are you ready? A middle-aged man wearing a cap walked in. He was wearing an ugly work outfit, holding a tablet in his hand, and a tool belt around his waist. Those who did not know him would have mistaken him for a production manager, but in reality, this unassuming middle-aged man was the main director of the show, Fei Ran. Actually, there is nothing much to prepare. Feng Bujue collapsed on the sofa and looked at the director weakly. It would be best if we could get this done as soon as possible. Ha! Fei Ran laughed and patted the cameraman on his shoulder. He then signaled for him to turn off the camera. The cameraman nodded and stopped recording. Hey you! Fei Ran took several steps forward and sat down next to Brother Ju. This is a show for you, not a serious punishment, he said as he took out a pack of cigarettes. You don't mind if I take a puff, right? It's fine, Feng Bujue answered. Fei Ran lit the cigarette and took a puff. By the way, have you seen the result of the online poll? No. Feng Bujue immediately replied. Ha ha ha. Firen laughed as she blew out a puff of smoke. Alright, I'll tell you then. You're in second place. It doesn't sound good. Feng Bujue muttered. There's something even worse. Firen said half-jokingly. Actually, the number of votes for the person in first place is fake, huh? Feng Bujue squinted at the director and said, I'm a contestant. This kind of thing, it's not very good for you to tell me. Sigh. It's an open secret. You're the only one who doesn't know. Fei Ran took another puff of her cigarette and turned to the cameraman who was playing with his phone. Hey, Xiao Wu, you know about this too, right? Xiao Wu shrugged. I know. That person's fans have been cursing at each other for half a month now. There are hundreds of posts on the internet. Take a look. Fei Ran immediately looked at Brother Bujue and said, Bujue, you're too careless about our show. If I didn't call you, you probably wouldn't even know that you've been nominated for the revival round. Yeah. I'm just praying that I won't appear in the results, Feng Bujue added. Haha, alright, Fei Ran said. Anyway, I've told you the situation. You'd better prepare yourself. Feng Bujue looked confused. Prepare what? Think about it. Fei Ran said. You're so popular, but you don't want to win. You have to do something, right? I mean, try to be as bad as possible, right? Feng Bujue replied. Yes, but you can't mess around like you did last time, Fei Ran said. I told you last time. If you want to be eliminated, the best way is to be mediocre. Oh, Feng Bujue answered. He thought about it for a few seconds before adding, let me confirm it first. He turned to look at Fei Ran. Actually, the winner of this revival match has already been decided internally, right? Fei Ran heard this and was slightly taken aback. He took another puff of his cigarette and replied after a few seconds, Why do you ask? The process of speculation isn't that complicated. Feng Bujue raised his hands and rested them behind his head. He said casually, since you know that there's something wrong with the contestant who got the first place, but you still let it happen, I'm sure you want to see this result happen. Also, this episode is supposed to be broadcast at the end of June. It should have been recorded in the middle of June, but now it's been brought forward by a week. This is probably to prevent the vote manipulation incident from spreading further. He looked at Fei Ran calmly and said, so, I'm guessing, the winner of this revival round has already been decided. And you, Director, you're giving me a heads up because you think I might ruin it. As soon as he said this, Fei Ran's expression changed. For the next 30 seconds, the lounge fell into silence. Half a minute later, Fei Ran took a deep puff of her cigarette and put it out. She looked up and said, Xiao Wu, can you leave for a moment? The cameraman didn't say anything and tactfully left. He didn't forget to close the door behind him. I don't think so. Fei Ran looked at Brother Ju and said in a deep voice, You're a smart person. There are some things that I'll tell you here. I hope it won't spread outside this room. Okay, go ahead. Feng Bujue crossed his legs and said casually. Fei Ran looked at Brother Ju again and said in a low voice, You guessed right. The winner of this revival round has already been decided. It's the winner of the online poll, Knight of Fire. He raised his hand and made a gesture of pointing upward. Business is business. There are some things that even I can't control. Only the higher-ups have the final say. Do you understand? Humph, of course. Feng Bujue smirked. At this moment, his eyes were filled with disdain, but he still said politely, I understand. Director, it's not easy for you. Fei Ran smiled bitterly. It's okay. He shook his head. To be honest, my original intention for this show was definitely not to turn it into what it is today. It's a pity. He wanted to say something but stopped himself, looking a little helpless. If everyone was like you, many things in this world would be purer. If everyone was like me, the world would have been over a long time ago. Feng Bujue smiled and quickly changed the topic. Okay, I understand. Director Fei, don't worry. He patted his chest. Trust me, I'll definitely be eliminated naturally. There won't be any traces of my performance. Fei Ran stared at Brother Ju for 2 seconds. I have my doubts. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.